The alarm clock screamed into the darkness at 5 in the morning, and Maya Chen's hand shot out to silence it before the second beep could wake her brother. The apartment was cold. The heating had been out for 2 months, and the landlord kept saying he'd fix it the same way he'd been saying it since October. Now it was late November, and the cold had settled into the walls like something permanent. Maya pulled a sweater over her pajamas and padded barefoot across worn carpet to the kitchen. The kitchen was barely bigger than a closet, with scratched linoleum that had probably been white 20 years ago, and cabinets that didn't close all the way. The fridge hummed too loud, keeping everything just slightly warmer than it should. On the counter sat a stack of bills, each one stamped with increasingly urgent red letters. On the fridge door, held by a popsicle-shaped magnet that said "Cool Student," Lucas's report card showed straight A's. She filled the kettle and set it on the stove. While the water heated, she walked to the bedroom where Lucas slept. He was curled under 2 blankets and a comforter, clutching Mr. Bear, the stuffed animal their father had won at the county fair when Lucas was 3. The bear was missing an eye and had been sewn back together so many times it looked like something from a horror movie. But Lucas wouldn't sleep without it. He looked so small at 10 years old, all knobby elbows and knees, his face peaceful in a way it never was when he was awake. Maya watched him breathe, in and out, safe, warm enough for now. She went back to the kitchen and opened the drawer by the sink. Beneath expired coupons and takeout menus, she kept a photo of their father holding baby Lucas in the hospital. Lucas's eyes were barely open, his tiny fist wrapped around James Chen's finger. On the back, in her father's careful handwriting, words that Maya had memorized 3 years ago. "Take care of your brother. He's gonna do great things. Dad." 3 years since he had written that. 3 years since she'd promised. 3 years of trying not to break. Maya made instant coffee with water that wasn't quite boiling because they didn't have time for the kettle to heat properly. She pulled her father's suit from where it hung on the bathroom door and laid it across the couch. The suit was the only nice thing he'd owned. He'd bought it for Lucas's kindergarten graduation and worn it exactly 3 times before the heart attack. It still smelled faintly of his cologne. Old Spice, the cheap kind. Maya had cried the first time she'd put it on. She didn't cry anymore. Couldn't afford to. She ironed every inch with a precision that was probably excessive but felt necessary. The collar, the cuffs, the front panels, making the creases sharp enough to cut. On the coffee table, a yellow notepad showed her handwritten budget. Every dollar accounted for. Rent, $850, 7 days late. Electric, $147, final notice in red. Groceries, $180. This week only 43 left. Lucas shoes, $0. Duct tape holding the soles together for now. Emergency fund, $0. And at the bottom, circled twice, the words that had kept her going for 2 months. Interview today. Last chance this month. At 6, Lucas stumbled out of the bedroom rubbing his eyes. "You're already up." "Big day," Maya said, forcing brightness into her voice. "Want cereal?" Lucas poured himself a bowl of off-brand Cheerios and sat at the tiny table, feet swinging. He looked at her suit, at her careful makeup, at the folder sitting by the door like a ticking bomb. "That's Grandpa's suit, right?" "Dad's suit, yes." "He'd want you to have it. He'd want me to earn it." Lucas was quiet for a moment, chewing his cereal. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Made you something." Maya opened it. A handmade card, construction paper folded in half. On the front, in Lucas's careful 10-year-old handwriting, "Good luck today, you're gonna kill it. Love, Lucas." Inside, a crayon drawing of Maya in a suit, standing on a podium marked number 1. Maya had to turn away, pretending to be very interested in rinsing out her coffee cup. Her throat was too tight to speak. "You okay?" "Yeah, baby, just thank you, this is perfect." "You're going to get it. The tech company. Hayes Dynamics, right?" "Hartwell Technologies." "Right, Dad would be proud." The words hit her sideways. Maya had to grip the edge of the sink. "Yeah," she managed. "He would." At 6:25, Maya was dressed, resume folder in hand, standing at the door. Lucas was gathering his things for school, shoving papers into his backpack with the efficiency of someone who'd learned to be responsible too young. "Marcus is going to walk me to school," he said. Marcus was their neighbor, 14, marginally responsible, And I'll go to Miss Chen's after until you pick me up. You have your key? Yes. Your homework? Yes. Your charger? Maya. Lucas gave her a look. I got it. Go. Don't be late. She hugged him one more time, tight enough that he squirmed. Then she walked out into the pre-dawn darkness, down 3 flights of stairs that smelled like cooking grease and mildew, out to Peachtree Street to catch the number 42 bus. The whole way, her stomach twisted itself into knots. This was it. This was the interview that would change everything. Junior data analyst at Hartwell Technologies. She'd applied to 50 jobs, got 3 callbacks. 2 interviews had gone nowhere. One guy had literally told her she seemed too urban for their corporate culture, whatever the hell that meant. Hartwell was her last shot for the month. Her last shot before she'd have to choose between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. At the bus stop, an elderly woman stood struggling with a heavy grocery bag. The bag's handle broke, and oranges rolled into the street. Maya helped her gather them, chasing one that had rolled near the curb. The woman smiled, genuine and warm. Thank you, dear. Not many people stop anymore. Maya didn't know yet that stopping would become the pattern of her day, the pattern of her life. The woman got on a different bus, waving goodbye. Maya waited for the number 42. When it arrived at 6:42, right on schedule, she climbed on and swiped her card, found a spot to stand near the middle doors. One hand gripped the overhead rail. The other clutched her folder against her chest like it might fly away. 6:47. The interview was at 8. She'd timed it perfectly. 30 minutes to get there, 20 minutes to find the right floor, 10 minutes in the bathroom to fix her hair and calm her breathing. The suit her father had bought was a little big, but she'd ironed it until the creases could cut paper. The bus smelled like coffee and sweat and someone's oversweet perfume. Around her, people stared at phones or dozed against windows or just stared at nothing with that glazed look of people who'd made this trip 1,000 times. Eleanor Hartwell sat in the priority seating section up front. She was maybe 75, white hair pinned back, wearing a coat that had probably been expensive 20 years ago. Her face was tight with pain she was trying to hide. One hand clutched a worn Bible, the other pressed against her hip. Her lips moved in silent prayer. Maya noticed because she always noticed. Her father had taught her that. People look right through folks who are hurting, he'd said once after a double shift at the warehouse left him barely able to stand. They see, but they don't see. You understand? She'd understood. She'd been 14. Inside Eleanor's Bible, visible when she shifted, was a photograph. A young woman, maybe 30, with a beautiful smile. Maya couldn't read the writing on the back, but she could see Eleanor's thumb brushing over it with the kind of tenderness that spoke of old grief. The bus driver, white guy maybe 50 with a hard-set jaw, barked into his radio about traffic on North Avenue. Nobody looked up. Around Maya, she cataloged the passengers with the observation skills that came from always being on guard. A nurse in scrubs, black woman maybe 40, with exhausted eyes and a wedding ring that caught the light. Her phone screen showed a family photo as a background. She sat with her eyes closed, trying to steal a few minutes of rest. A young white man in a tech company hoodie, AirPods firmly in place, playing some game on his phone, oblivious to everything around him. An older black man, maybe 60, in work boots and a jacket that had seen better winters. His jaw was tight, his eyes open but focused on nothing. He saw Eleanor. Maya watched him see Eleanor, and then watched his eyes drift away. Something sad and resigned in that movement. A middle-aged white woman with a designer handbag, Cartier or something close, glancing at her expensive watch every few seconds like she could make time move faster through sheer will. Maya recognized the nurse. She'd been at Grady Memorial 3 years ago when James Chen died. She'd been kind in that practiced professional way, bringing Maya coffee, explaining what happened with a gentleness that Maya remembered. But the nurse didn't recognize Maya now, didn't remember. That small moment of invisibility hurt more than it should have. Then the bus hit a pothole. Not just any pothole. One of those crater-sized Atlanta specials that made you wonder if the street department had given up entirely. The bus jolted hard. Eleanor Hartwell pitched forward out of her seat. The sound she made when her hip hit the floor wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. A small, sharp gasp that said pain in a way that made Maya's stomach clench. The Bible skittered across the dirty floor. The photograph slipped out, face up. The young woman smiled, looking at nothing. Eleanor lay on the floor, one hand reaching for the pole, the other pressed against her hip. Her face had gone sheet white. "Jesus," someone muttered. Then nothing. People looked. Of course they looked. A few leaned forward, faces showing that brief flash of concern. Then one by one, they looked away. The young man's AirPods stayed in. The woman with the designer bag grimaced and went back to her phone. The nurse's eyes had opened. Sarah, though Maya didn't know her name yet, had seen. Her body had gone rigid with the recognition of someone who knew exactly how serious this was. But she didn't move. Her hand gripped her own phone tighter. Her daughter had a recital at 3. If she was late to pick her up again, her ex would file for custody modification. She couldn't. She couldn't afford to care right now. The older black man, Walter, though Maya didn't know his name either, had half risen from his seat, then sat back down, his eyes squeezed shut. 20 years ago, he'd stopped to help. Police came and assumed he was the problem. Lost his job for being late, got marked as a troublemaker. He'd learned. God help him, he'd learned. Maya's grip tightened on the folder. Her interview packet. Her resume with the hastily updated skills section. The cover letter she'd rewritten 17 times. Everything that was supposed to change her life in 1 hour and 13 minutes. The bus driver glanced in his mirror, jaw tightening even more. "Ma'am, you need to get up," he called back, voice flat. "I can't have you lying on my floor." Eleanor tried to push herself up. Her arm shook. She couldn't do it. "I'm sorry," she said, voice thin. "I just need a moment." "Can't give you a moment. I'm behind schedule." The driver pulled over, not at a bus stop, just at some random curb on a semi-industrial stretch of road. Warehouses, closed storefronts. Not a person in sight. Rain had started, light but cold, the kind that promised to get worse. "This is your stop, ma'am." Maya felt something cold spread through her chest. "She's hurt," she called out. "She can't just—" "Company policy," the driver cut her off. "Someone gets hurt on the bus, they get off the bus. I'm not dealing with a lawsuit because someone fell and then claimed I kept driving. That's insane," Maya said, moving forward. Around her, people shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. "She's elderly. She's hurt. You can't just dump her on the street. Watch me." The driver opened the front doors. "Ma'am, you need to exit now." Eleanor was crying silently, tears running down her face as she tried to crawl toward the door. She couldn't put weight on her hip. Every movement made her breath hitch. Nobody moved. Maya looked around at the sea of faces. The young guy still scrolling through his game. The nurse staring determinedly at nothing. Tears on her own face now. The older black man with his eyes closed like he was trying to convince himself this wasn't happening. The woman with the designer bag checking her watch again. She knew that look. It was the look of people who'd learned that getting involved only brought trouble. Her father's face flashed through her mind. James Chen collapsed in that Kroger parking lot 3 years ago, clutching his chest. Security footage showed 13 people walk past him. One elderly woman had called 911, but she'd left before help arrived, too afraid to stay. The paramedics came 47 minutes later. The coroner said if someone had performed CPR, if someone had stayed, he might have made it. That might have had haunted Maya for 3 years. She opened her folder. Inside, her resume. The application for Lucas's private school that was due tomorrow, needing a $50 fee she didn't have. The eviction notice giving her 7 days to pay or vacate. And tucked in the back pocket, she didn't know why she carried it. Her father's death certificate. She looked at the clock on her phone, 6:52. She looked at Eleanor Hayes, trying to drag herself toward the door with a dignity she shouldn't have to summon. She looked at the photograph still lying on the floor. The young woman's smile. On the back, Maya could see now, written in Eleanor's hand. "Sarah, my beautiful daughter." 1987. Eleanor had lost her daughter, the same age Maya was now. The bus driver was tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, impatient. "Come on, lady, some of us got places to be." Maya picked up the Bible, picked up the photograph, tucked it carefully back between the pages. She thought about her father's last words. "Take care of your brother." She thought about Lucas's card in her pocket. "You're gonna kill it." She thought about 13 people who'd decided they had somewhere more important to be. "Stop the bus," she said. The driver glanced back. "What?" "Stop the bus, I'm getting off." "Suit yourself." The doors were already open. Maya jumped down onto the curb. folder still pressed to her chest. She handed Eleanor her Bible, making sure the photograph was secure. "I've got you, ma'am. You're not alone." Behind her, the doors hissed shut. The bus pulled away, diesel smoke hanging in the cold air. Through the window, Maya saw the nurse crying silently, saw the older black man watching her with something like respect and regret, saw the woman with the designer bag looking confused, like she couldn't understand why anyone would do this. Maya stood on an empty street in an empty part of Atlanta and watched her future drive away without her. The rain was picking up. Eleanor was trying to lower herself onto a bench at the bus shelter, moving with that terrible, careful slowness that meant serious pain. Maya kept her distance, kept her hands visible. She knew the instincts people had. "Ma'am," she said, "my name is Maya. Are you okay?" Eleanor looked up and Maya saw it. That flash of fear, quick and automatic, before shame washed over the older woman's face. Shame at being afraid. Shame at showing it. "I'm sorry," Eleanor said, voice shaking. "I didn't mean to. It's okay," Maya said, even though it wasn't. "I'm just here to help. Can I call someone for you? Do you have a phone?" Eleanor fumbled in her purse, hands shaking so badly she could barely grip anything. My son, I can't remember his number. It's in my phone, but I can't. Maya pulled out her own phone. "Let me call 911. She dialed, got put on hold. The automated system asked her to rate her emergency on a scale of 1 to 10. She pressed 9. 5 minutes of hold music. When someone finally answered, Maya explained the situation. Elderly woman, injured hip, possible fracture, industrial area, sparse traffic. "We'll send someone when we can," the dispatcher said. "Current wait time is approximately 40 to 50 minutes. 50 minutes? Maya's voice cracked. "She's hurt. She needs help now." "Ma'am, we're experiencing high call volume. All units are currently assigned. We'll get there as soon as possible." The line went dead. Maya stared at her phone, opened her rideshare app. No cars available nearby. Estimated wait time 45 minutes. She tried another app. Same thing. The rain was getting heavier. Eleanor was shivering on the bench, arms wrapped around herself. Maya took off her suit jacket, her father's jacket, the one she'd been saving for today, and draped it over the older woman's shoulders. "What's your name, dear?" Eleanor asked. Maya Chen." Eleanor saw the name, made some connection. "Chen, are you Chinese?" "My father was. He passed 3 years ago." Eleanor's hand gripped Maya's with surprising strength. "I'm so sorry. I lost my daughter 5 years ago. Sarah, Her voice broke. Both women stood in the rain, their losses heavy between them. "Where were you going?" Eleanor asked after a moment. "When you got off the bus?" Maya hesitated. "Job interview." Eleanor's face crumpled. "Oh, no. Oh, my dear God, no." "It's okay." "It's not okay. It's not. What time?" 8, but it's fine. Maya checked her watch. 7:15. "You can still make it. Please. Leave me here. Call from the interview." "I'll wait." Maya looked at Eleanor, 76 years old, injured, alone in the rain, and she was trying to convince Maya to leave her. "I'm not leaving you," Maya said firmly. "And that's final." "There's another bus stop 3 blocks that way," Maya said. "It's got better shelter and it's on a busier street. Can you walk that far if I help you?" Eleanor nodded, though her face said she wasn't sure. "Okay." Maya crouched down, careful and slow. "I'm going to help you stand. Just lean on me." It took them almost 20 minutes to cover 3 blocks. Every step, Eleanor's breath came in sharp little gasps. Maya kept one arm around her, supporting most of her weight, moving at a pace that would have made a snail impatient. While they walked, they talked. Eleanor told her story in between gasps of pain. Her husband Robert had built Hartwell Technologies from a garage startup. Died 15 years ago of a heart attack, working too much, never slowing down. Her daughter Sarah had been VP of the company. Smart, ambitious, driven, too much like her father. Started drinking after Robert died. 5 years ago, drove into a tree. Drunk driver, but she was the drunk driver. "My son Jonathan," Eleanor said. "He's the CEO now. He works all the time. Just like his father. Just like his sister. I barely see him. I understand he's busy, but..." She trailed off. "You can be surrounded by people and still be invisible. I pray every day someone will just see me. Really see me. You did. you saw me. Maya shared her own story. Father emigrated from China at 25. Met Maya's mother, a Black American woman. Maya was born, but her mother left when Maya was 8. Couldn't handle the struggle, the poverty. Father raised Maya alone, working warehouse jobs, double shifts, throwing out his back, but never complaining. Lucas was born when I was 16, Maya said. Different mother, also gone. So Dad raised both of us. Until? Eleanor prompted gently. Heart attack. 3 years ago. I was 23. Lucas was 7. Dad collapsed in a parking lot. 13 people walked past him. One person called 911, but didn't stay. Paramedics got there 47 minutes later. He was already gone. Eleanor's grip on Maya's arm tightened. Oh, sweetheart. The last thing he said to me was, take care of your brother. Some days I don't know if I'm his sister or his mother. You're both, Eleanor said. That's the hardest job there is. He used to say, do the right thing even when it costs you. He raised you well. He didn't raise me long enough. They reached the second bus stop at 7:45. Better shelter, 3 walls and a roof, a bench that wasn't held together with rust. Eleanor lowered herself carefully while Maya tried calling 911 again. Still a wait. Rideshare still 45 minutes out. Maya's phone buzzed. Email notification. She knew what it was before she opened it. From Hartwell Technologies HR, subject, interview reminder, 8 a.m. today. The email was cheerful, professional. Please arrive 10 minutes early. We look forward to meeting you. If you need to reschedule, please contact us at least 24 hours in advance. 7:45, 15 minutes to interview. 24 hours advance notice required. Maya's hand shook. She tried to call the number in the email. Voicemail. She left a message, trying to keep her voice steady. This is Maya Chen. I have a family emergency. Someone I'm with has been hurt. I can't make the interview. I'm so sorry. Please, if there's any way to reschedule. She hung up knowing it was useless. Family emergency was code for unreliable. Companies didn't reschedule for people like her. Eleanor was watching her with that terrible knowing expression. What was it? What was the thing you're missing? Maya's laugh came out wet. A job interview, data analyst, would have been really good. Oh my God. Eleanor's hand went to her mouth. Oh my God, I've ruined your life. You didn't ruin anything, Maya said, sitting down next to her on the bench. That bus driver ruined it. The system ruined it. The people who just sat there and did nothing ruined it. She looked at Eleanor. You didn't do anything wrong. You got hurt. That's not a crime. It feels like one, Eleanor said quietly. Getting old, being in the way, needing help. Maya thought about her father working overtime every week, throwing his back out, lifting boxes, taking ibuprofen like candy because he couldn't afford to miss a shift, the way he'd brushed off her concerns. Said he was fine right up until the day his heart just stopped. It shouldn't feel like one, she said. Eleanor, Maya said after a moment, I need you to know something. I saw 13 people look away on that bus, just like 13 people looked away when my dad died. And I thought, if I get off this bus, I might lose the job. But if I stay on this bus, I lose myself. I'd rather be broke and decent than comfortable and empty. You're 26 years old, Eleanor said. You have a little brother depending on you. You can't afford to be noble. I can't afford not to be. What am I teaching Lucas if I'm the 14th person who doesn't stop? What's your father's name? James Chen. Eleanor gripped her hand. James Chen raised a remarkable daughter. He raised a stubborn daughter. Same thing. At 8:15, an ambulance finally arrived. The paramedics were efficient and kind, which somehow made everything worse. They loaded Eleanor onto a stretcher, checked her vitals, asked questions about pain levels and medical history. You family? One of them asked Maya. Eleanor answered before Maya could. Yes, she's my family. The paramedic looked at Maya, 26 and black, then at Eleanor, 76 and white. He knew they weren't related by blood, but he saw something else, something that mattered more. Okay, he said. You riding with her? Yes, Maya said. In the ambulance, Eleanor held Maya's hand. I don't even know your last name. Maya Chen. I'm Eleanor Hartwell. And Maya Chen, I'm going to make sure you don't regret this day. I don't regret it already. You don't know yet what you've lost. I know exactly what I've lost, and I'd lose it again. Grady Memorial Hospital smelled like antiseptic and floor wax and human suffering. The emergency room was packed, people in chairs, people leaning against walls, people on gurneys in hallways because there weren't enough rooms. Maya stood outside the exam room they'd put Eleanor in, dripping rainwater on the linoleum. Her father's suit was ruined. The folder was soggy, the papers inside probably illegible. A security guard stood nearby. Marcus, though Maya didn't know his name yet. Black man in his 50s with tired eyes. He'd been watching Maya since they arrived. "You with the patient?" he asked finally. "Yes, no, I was with her when she got hurt." His eyes narrowed. "How do you know her?" "I don't. She fell on the bus. Nobody helped, so I got off with her." He pulled out a small notebook. "What's your name?" "Maya Moore." "And you're not related to the patient?" "No, but she was hurt and alone." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then his expression softened. "You're a good person doing this." "My mother, she fell once. Nobody helped. I was at work. By time I got there." He didn't finish the sentence. "You did the right thing." It was the first time someone had said it like it mattered. A nurse came out. White woman, maybe 40, with the exhausted look of someone on hour 10 of a 12-hour shift. "She's asking for you," the nurse said to Maya, "the patient, but I need to verify some things first." After the questions, after the verification, Maya was allowed in. Eleanor lay under a hospital blanket, morphine making her groggy but lucid. "You're still here." "Of course." "The interview?" Maya showed her the email that had come through at 9:15 from Hartwell Technologies HR. Subject: Interview status, Maya Chen. Eleanor read it, started crying. "I've ruined your life." "You haven't ruined anything. I saw your face on that bus. This was everything." Maya sat down, took Eleanor's hand. "You want to know what I saw on that bus? 13 people who looked away. And I thought, if I get off this bus, I might lose the job. But if I stay on that bus, I lose myself." Dr. Patel came in, young, South Asian, moving with brisk efficiency. "Mrs. Hartwell, I'm Dr. Patel. We've got your x-rays back. Your hip is fractured. You're going to need surgery to repair it." She paused, looking at Maya. "Are you family?" "Yes," Eleanor said before Maya could answer. "She's my family." Dr. Patel explained the surgery. "Pins, recovery time, physical therapy. We're trying to reach your emergency contact, a Jonathan Hartwell." "My son," Eleanor said. "He's probably in a meeting." "He's always in a meeting." The hours between 10 and 3 moved slowly. Maya and Eleanor talked, really talked, about loss and loneliness and what it meant to be seen. Eleanor spoke about her daughter Sarah, how she'd been so much like her father, how the drinking had started after Robert died, how Eleanor had tried to help but didn't know how she'd gotten the call at 2 in the morning 5 years ago, how she'd known before they said it. Maya spoke about her father, about raising Lucas, about being 23 and suddenly responsible for a 7-year-old, about the weight of that promise. "Take care of your brother." Lucas texted at 11:30. "How'd it go?" Maya stared at the screen, typed out, "Still in progress, tell you later." Deleted it, typed, "Had to help someone, interview rescheduled." She'd lied to her brother for the first time in 3 years. Couldn't bear to disappoint him, not today. At 3:47, a man in a $5,000 suit burst into the emergency room. "Where is Margaret Hayes?" His voice carried authority, the kind that came from years of being listened to. The nurse at the desk corrected him gently. "Eleanor Hartwell?" "Yes, sorry, Eleanor. My mother. Where is she?" He was already flustered, already guilty for not knowing she used Eleanor now, not Margaret, already failing before he'd arrived. "Down the hall, room 7. Jonathan Hartwell was maybe 50, salt and pepper hair, expensive watch, but his face was exhausted and worried and carrying guilt like a weight. He stopped at the doorway, saw his mother sleeping in the bed, saw Maya in the ruined suit in the chair, folder on her lap, and something in his expression changed. "Who are you?" Maya stood. "I'm Maya. I was on the bus with your mother when she fell." Jonathan's eyes went to the chair she'd been sleeping in, to the water-stained folder, back to her face. "You stayed." He looked at his watch. The gesture was reflexive. Then he caught himself, and shame crossed his features. "How long?" 7 hours, give or take." Eleanor woke up. "Jonathan, you came." Of course I came, I called you 3 times this week. You didn't call back. I'm sorry, I was in meetings. You're always in meetings. Maya felt like she was intruding on something private, started to edge toward the door. Sit, Maya, please. Eleanor's voice was firm despite the morphine. She told Jonathan everything. The bus, the fall, the driver who'd dumped her on an empty street, the passengers who'd looked away. And then this young woman got off the bus with me, stayed with me, missed her job interview, stayed anyway. Jonathan turned to Maya with a different kind of attention. You missed a job interview. It's fine. It's not fine. Tell him where. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me. Jonathan's voice was quiet but insistent. Maya looked at Eleanor, at Jonathan, at her ruined folder. Hartwell Technologies, junior data analyst position. 8 this morning. The silence that followed was complete. Jonathan stared at her. You're Maya Chen. How do you? I'm Jonathan Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Technologies. The world tilted sideways. The interview you missed. That was with my company. I was supposed to be in that room. Maya sat down hard, couldn't process it. The cosmic absurdity, the impossible coincidence. Eleanor was watching them both, something like wonder on her face. Jonathan stepped outside. She heard him on the phone. Patricia, find the file on Maya Chen. No, don't close it. Personal exception. Monday morning, 10 a.m. Make it happen. He came back in. You have a second interview. Monday, 10 a.m. I don't want charity. It's not charity. Jonathan sat down across from her. My mother could have died today. Alone. On a street corner. Because a bus driver decided she was inconvenient. Because passengers decided she wasn't their problem. Because the system I participate in, the system I benefit from, decided her life didn't matter as much as staying on schedule. He looked at Maya. And you, who had every reason to stay on that bus, didn't. You gave up an opportunity that could have changed your life. For a stranger, that's not charity, that's character. And character is exactly what we need. Eleanor reached out. Please, Maya, let me give you back what you lost. Maya looked at her ruined folder. At Eleanor, alive. At Jonathan, sincere. Monday, 10 a.m. I'll be there. Before Maya left, Eleanor whispered close. Maya, I need you to know something. Jonathan is a good man, but he's forgotten what matters. You reminded me today. Maybe you can remind him too. I just helped someone who needed help. Exactly. On the bus home, different line, different driver, Maya sat next to a young mother with a crying baby. The mother kept apologizing to everyone around her. Maya touched her arm gently. Don't apologize. Babies cry. It's okay. The mother looked ready to cry herself. Thank you. It was a small kindness. But Maya was learning that small kindnesses could change a day the same way big choices changed a life. The apartment was dark when she got home. Lucas was at Miss Chen's. Maya had called to say she'd be late, invented a story about the interview running long and meeting people afterward. She'd tell him the truth tomorrow, when she had the energy, when it felt real. She opened the door to find the electricity was out. Of course, she muttered. She fumbled for the candles they kept under the sink. The power bill, the one with the red stamp, the one that had said final notice. She lit 3 candles and sat on the couch in the flickering light. The apartment felt different in the darkness, smaller, somehow. Through the thin walls she could hear the neighbors, the Martinez family upstairs arguing, a baby crying 2 doors down, someone's television playing too loud. This was her life, this cramped, dark apartment. This was what she'd been trying so desperately to escape. Maya pulled out her father's suit. It was ruined, wrinkled beyond repair, stained with rain and mud and whatever else had been on that street. She tried to smooth out the wrinkles anyway, running her hands over the jacket, like she could will it back to life. That's when she felt it. Something in the inside pocket she'd never noticed before. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. The edges were worn like it had been handled many times. She unfolded it carefully. Her father's handwriting, the same careful script from the back of Lucas's baby photo. Maya, this suit is for important days. Days when you show the world who you really are. Wear it with pride. Dad. At the bottom, a date. 1 week before he died. He'd been preparing to give it to her for her college graduation. Never got the chance. Maya held the note and finally cried. Really cried. For the first time since getting off that bus. For her father who'd tried to prepare her. For Eleanor who'd lost her daughter. For herself and Lucas. And the impossible weight of trying to be enough. But she was also smiling, through the tears, smiling. "I wore it, Dad," she whispered to the empty apartment. "I showed them. I hope I made you proud." Somewhere in the darkness, she felt like maybe he heard. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Tuesday morning came with weak November sunlight filtering through the apartment windows. Maya woke to find Lucas already dressed for school, making himself breakfast with the quiet efficiency of a child who'd learned not to wake his sister. The power had come back on sometime during the night. The apartment was warm again, or at least warmer than it had been. Maya sat up on the couch where she'd fallen asleep, still wearing her ruined clothes. Every muscle ached. Her eyes felt swollen from crying. The suit jacket lay draped over the back of the chair, still damp, wrinkled beyond any hope of repair. "You okay?" Lucas asked, pouring milk over his cereal. "Yeah, baby, just tired." "What happened yesterday? Really?" Maya pulled herself up, joints protesting, poured herself coffee from the pot Lucas had already made, sat down at the small table across from him. "I helped someone who got hurt, an old lady on the bus. She fell and nobody else would stop, so I did." "And you missed your interview." "Yeah." Lucas was quiet for a moment, chewing thoughtfully. Then he said, "Dad would have done the same thing." Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest. Yeah, he would have. "So when's the new interview?" "Monday, 10 in the morning." "You got another chance?" Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Lucas reached across the table and squeezed her hand. His fingers were sticky with milk, but Maya didn't care. "I knew they'd give you another chance. You're too good not to." After Lucas left for school, Maya tried to salvage the suit. She hung it in the bathroom with the shower running hot, hoping the steam would help with the wrinkles. It didn't. The fabric was damaged, the seams stressed. She stood there looking at it and felt the weight of what she'd given up settling over her again. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, thinking it was a spam call, but something made her swipe to accept. A text message appeared. "Maya, this is Eleanor Hartwell. Jonathan gave me your number. I hope that's okay. I wanted to thank you again for yesterday. You saved my life." Maya stared at the screen, typed back slowly with her thumbs. "You don't need to thank me. I'm just glad you're okay." The response came quickly. "I need you to know something. Jonathan didn't reschedule your interview because of me. He rescheduled it because you were qualified and you had a legitimate emergency. Please don't doubt yourself. You earned that opportunity." "How did you know I was doubting myself?" "Because I would be too. When you're used to having to fight for everything, kindness feels suspicious. But sometimes, dear, kindness is just kindness." Maya read the message 3 times. "Thank you for saying that. See you soon. I'd like to have you and your brother over for dinner when I'm recovered. Would that be okay?" "That would be really nice." "Good. Now go get some sleep. You have an interview to prepare for." Maya smiled despite everything, set her phone down and looked around the apartment, at the stack of bills that hadn't gotten any smaller, at Lucas's report card still on the fridge, at her father's suit hanging uselessly in the bathroom. She went to her closet and started searching for something else to wear. The weekend stretched out long and strange. Saturday morning, Maya went through her closet 3 times looking for something to wear. Everything felt wrong, too casual, too worn, too obviously cheap. She laid outfits across the bed and stood back trying to see them the way the interview panel would see them. Lucas wandered in around 9, still in his pajamas. "What are you doing?" "Trying to figure out what to wear Monday. They all look fine. They all look like what they are. Goodwill and clearance racks." "So? You're not trying to impress them with your clothes. You're trying to impress them with your brain. When did you get so smart?" "I've always been smart, you just don't listen." She settled on the black skirt and white blouse. Simple, professional, clean. It would have to be enough. Saturday afternoon, she walked to the public library, used their computers to research Hartwell Technologies more deeply. The company had been founded 30 years ago by Robert Hartwell, started as a small IT consulting firm, and grew into a major player in enterprise data solutions. Jonathan Hartwell took over as CEO 10 years ago after his father's death. She found articles about company culture, awards for innovation, recognition as one of Atlanta's best places to work. But she also found a lawsuit from 3 years ago. Discrimination complaint filed by a former employee. Settled out of court. Details sealed. She pulled up Derek Fisher's LinkedIn profile. Georgia Tech, bachelor's and master's in computer science, 10 years at IBM before joining Hartwell, publications in data science journals. The man had credentials. Maya tried to imagine herself working under him. The image wouldn't quite come into focus. Sunday, she practiced, stood in front of the bathroom mirror, and rehearsed answers to common interview questions. The answers felt wooden. She tried again with more energy, then tried a third time aiming for something in between. Lucas knocked on the door. "You've been in there for an hour. Just practicing. You're going to be fine. Stop overthinking it." He was quiet for a moment. Then Dad used to say the best way to seem confident is to focus on helping people instead of impressing them. When did Dad tell you that? He told you. When you were applying to colleges, I was like 6, but I remember. Maya opened the door and pulled Lucas into a hug. "Thank you for remembering." Later that evening, Eleanor called. "How are you feeling, dear?" "Nervous, terrified." "That sounds about right. Jonathan called me, told me he was impressed with you, said you reminded him why he got into this business." "What did he mean?" "I think you reminded him that people matter, that there's more to running a company than hitting revenue targets." After they hung up, Maya felt steadier, like maybe she had a chance. Sunday night, she couldn't sleep. Lay in bed running through scenarios. What if Derek asks something I can't answer? What if they change their mind? At 2 in the morning, she got up and made tea, sat at the kitchen table in the dark, pulled out the photo of her father holding baby Lucas. "I miss you," she whispered. "I wish you were here." But she knew what he'd say. Do the right thing, be honest, work hard. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Sunday night, Lucas found her at the kitchen table surrounded by papers, laptop open, going through practice interview questions for the third time. "You're going to be amazing," he said, dropping his backpack by the door. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Because you're my sister and you're the smartest person I know. And anyone who doesn't see that is an idiot." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just haven't been paying attention." Maya threw a wadded-up napkin at him. He threw it back. For a moment, things felt normal. Later that night, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Thought about Monday, about walking back into that building, about facing people who might only see her as the girl who helped the CEO's mother, about proving she deserved to be there. Her phone buzzed one more time. Eleanor again. "One last thing, dear. Jonathan is a good man, but he carries a lot of weight. His father's expectations, his sister's memory. Sometimes I think he forgets there are people behind the productivity numbers. You reminded him of that. That's worth more than any data model." Maya fell asleep holding the phone, Eleanor's words still glowing on the screen. Monday morning arrived with that crisp clarity that made everything feel both possible and terrifying. Maya woke at 5:30, gave herself extra time. She'd bought a new outfit over the weekend. Nothing expensive, just a black skirt from Target and a white blouse from the clearance rack at Kohl's. A gray cardigan she'd found at Goodwill. She'd sewn a new button on where one was missing, and it almost matched the others. It wasn't the suit, but it was hers, and it was clean, and it would have to be enough. Lucas was already awake when she came into the kitchen, watching her with serious eyes. "Big day. Big day. You're going to kill it." Maya kissed the top of his head. "Thanks, baby. Stop calling me that." At 9:37, Maya stood outside the gleaming glass tower that housed Hartwell Technologies. The building was all chrome and reflective surfaces, throwing the Atlanta skyline back at itself. Through the window, she could see people moving with purpose, expensive suits, confident strides, the kind of people who belonged in places like this. Maya looked down at her Target skirt and Goodwill cardigan, at her shoes, the same black flats from her college graduation, scuffed despite her best efforts to polish them. Around her, people streamed into the building. A woman in a designer suit carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than Maya made in a month. A man in expensive jeans and a button-down shirt, sneakers that had that particular look of costing $400. A group of young professionals laughing about something, coffee cups from the expensive place down the street in their hands. Maya had gotten coffee from the gas station. She'd thrown the cup away before coming inside, didn't want them to see. "You can do this," she muttered to herself. "You deserve this. You earned this." Her phone buzzed. "Lucas, you're going to kill it. Text me after." Maya smiled, texted back, "Love you too." Then she squared her shoulders and walked into the building. The lobby was marble and metal with a massive reception desk staffed by 2 people who looked like they'd been hired for their bone structure. Behind them, a wall of water cascaded down gray stone. the sound filling the space with artificial calm that made Maya's anxiety spike higher. She approached the desk. "I'm here for an interview. Maya Chen, 10 a.m. with Hartwell Technologies." The receptionist, blonde, maybe 30, typed something into her computer. Her nails clicked against the keyboard with the precision of someone who'd practiced. "ID, please." Maya handed over her driver's license. The woman studied it, studied Maya, compared the two like she was border security checking for contraband. "You'll need a visitor badge." She handed over a sticker badge that said "Visitor" in red letters and pointed toward the elevators with one perfectly manicured finger. 15th floor, conference room B. Maya stuck the badge to her chest, feeling like it marked her as someone who didn't belong, and headed for the elevators. The ride-up was packed. Business people discussing numbers, deadlines, client meetings. Nobody looked at her directly, but she felt their glances. Quick assessments that took in her outfit, her visitor badge, her obvious nervousness, and then looked away like they'd seen something mildly embarrassing. Maya kept her eyes on the floor numbers as they climbed. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. The doors opened. The 15th floor was all open-plan offices and glass-walled conference rooms. Everything was white and gray, with touches of that particular shade of blue every tech company seemed to use. Motivational quotes were printed on the walls in minimalist fonts. Innovate, disrupt, transform. People looked up as she passed. Their gazes slid over her and away like water off glass. Conference room B was small with a table that sat 6 and windows overlooking the city. 3 people were already there, sitting on one side of the table like a panel of judges. "Ms. Chen, thank you for coming." The woman who spoke stood to shake Maya's hand. She was maybe late 40s, white, with kind eyes and careful movements. "I'm Patricia Morgan, Senior HR Manager. We're so glad you could reschedule." "Thank you for the opportunity," Maya said. Patricia's grip was warm and firm, and something in her expression said she meant it. The second person was a man in his mid-40s, white, wearing a cardigan over a button-down shirt and khakis. He had glasses perched on his nose and the kind of expression that suggested he'd seen too many unqualified candidates to be impressed easily. "Derek Fisher," he said without standing, head of data analytics. His handshake, when Maya reached across the table, was perfunctory. His eyes were assessing, measuring, finding something wanting before she'd even sat down. The third person was Jonathan Hartwell. He nodded at Maya, but didn't acknowledge their previous meeting beyond a brief smile. "Mr. Hartwell will be observing today," Patricia said. They all sat. Maya arranged herself carefully, trying to look relaxed when every muscle in her body was tense. "Let's start with you telling us about your background," Patricia said, opening a folder. "Walk us through your education and experience." Maya launched into it. She'd practiced this part 100 times. Georgia State University, bachelor's in data analytics, 3.8 GPA, while working part-time to support herself and her younger brother. Internships with 2 local nonprofits, helping them optimize donor management systems and analyze program effectiveness. After graduation, freelance data analyst, building models for small businesses and nonprofits, and a few larger clients who needed project-based work. Derek interrupted. "You said you freelanced. Why weren't you employed full-time?" The question hung there, loaded with implications Maya could feel but couldn't quite name. "I was taking care of family obligations while building my skill set. My father passed away 3 years ago, and I became the primary caregiver for my 10-year-old brother. Freelancing gave me the flexibility to be present for him while still working professionally." "I see." Derek made a note in his leather portfolio. The pen made scratching sounds that seemed too loud in the quiet room. "And you felt that qualified you for a role in corporate data analytics?" Maya kept her voice even. "My freelance work gave me exposure to a wide variety of data problems across different industries. I've built predictive models, optimized databases, created data visualization dashboards, and worked directly with clients to translate technical findings into actionable insights. That's exactly what this role requires." Derek leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "But corporate environment is different from freelancing. There's structure, expectations, team dynamics, deadlines that can't be negotiated." The way he said it made Maya's jaw tighten. "I'm very comfortable with structure and collaboration. I've managed multiple client projects simultaneously, all with different deadlines and requirements. I've worked with teams remotely and in person. I'm adaptable and I'm a quick learner. And I'm excellent at data analysis, which is why I'm here. Of course, Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. We're very committed to diversity here at Hartwell Technologies. Very committed. In fact, we've been actively trying to diversify our team for the past year. It's important to us. The way he said diversity made Maya's skin crawl. Like it was a box to check. Like she was a quota to fill. Like her qualifications were secondary to the color of her skin. Patricia looked uncomfortable. Jonathan's expression was unreadable. "Ms. Chen," Jonathan said, his voice cutting through the tension. "Walk me through your approach to predictive modeling. Specifically, how do you determine which variables to include, and how do you validate your models?" The question was technical, specific, exactly what Maya had been hoping for. It gave her something real to grab onto instead of defending herself against veiled accusations. She answered, explaining her methodology step by step. Data cleaning, feature selection, cross-validation techniques, testing models against holdout data sets to ensure they generalized well. She cited examples from her portfolio, the nonprofit that increased donor retention by 23% based on her predictive model, the small retail chain that optimized inventory based on her demand forecasting. She got into the flow of it. This was what she was good at. This was what she knew. When she finished, there was a brief silence. That's impressive, Patricia said warmly, making notes. Your approach is sophisticated. It's textbook, Derek said dismissively. Anyone can learn the theory. Anyone can read a few books and memorize the right terms. Practical application is what matters. Real-world problem solving under pressure. Maya took a breath. Then give me a practical problem. Right now, I'll solve it. The words came out sharper than she'd intended, but she didn't take them back. Derek raised an eyebrow, confident. Capable, Maya corrected. Derek exchanged a glance with Patricia. Patricia's expression said, "Please don't." But Derek pulled out his laptop and turned it toward himself, clicking through files. Fine. We have a data set here. Retail supply chain for one of our clients. 3 years of purchase orders, delivery times, inventory levels, vendor information. The client is experiencing stockouts that are hurting their revenue. Find me the inefficiency and propose a solution. He pushed the laptop across the table toward Maya. The screen showed a spreadsheet with thousands of rows of data. Dates, SKUs, quantities, delivery zones, vendor codes, all jumbled together without apparent organization. You have 20 minutes. Maya pulled the laptop closer. Her hands were steady now. This was the work. This was what mattered. She started with the data cleaning, sorted by region, then by product category, then by time period. Pulled it into pivot tables looking for patterns. Which regions had the most stockouts? Which product categories? Were there seasonal trends? The Southeast region stood out immediately. Stockout incidents were 67% higher than any other region. She drilled deeper. Delivery times in the Southeast were inconsistent, ranging from 5 days to 23 days for the same product from the same vendor. That kind of variance suggested a supply chain problem, not a demand problem. She looked at vendor concentration. The Southeast was using one primary vendor for 73% of their inventory. When that vendor had delays, which they did frequently based on the data, everything cascaded. No backup, no redundancy. She cross-referenced with seasonal patterns. The Southeast showed massive demand spikes during hurricane season, June through November, as people stocked up on water, batteries, canned goods, essentials. The model they were using didn't account for weather patterns at all. It was purely historical sales data, which meant it couldn't predict crisis-driven demand. She built a quick pivot table showing the correlation between delivery delays and stockout incidents. The relationship was clear. When lead times exceeded 10 days, stockout probability increased by 40%. 15 minutes had passed. She had 5 left. She opened a new sheet and typed up her findings and recommendations, formatting them clearly and concisely. At 19 minutes, she turned the laptop around. Your lead time variance is highest in the Southeast region, specifically around shipping hubs in Georgia and Alabama. The root cause isn't demand fluctuation. It's your vendor concentration. You're using a single supplier for 73% of that region's inventory. When they have delays, everything cascades. She pulled up her pivot table. Additionally, your demand forecasting model doesn't account for seasonal weather events. The Southeast sees major spikes during hurricane season, but your model treats these as anomalies instead of predictable patterns. She clicked to another sheet. See this? When lead times from your primary vendor exceed 10 days, stockout probability jumps by 40%. And here, demand spikes during hurricane season average 156% of baseline, but your reorder points don't adjust for it. My recommendation: diversify your supplier base. Establish relationships with at least 2 backup vendors in the Southeast region. Implement a dynamic reorder point system that adjusts for regional risk factors, weather, vendor reliability, seasonal demand patterns. Add weather data as a variable in your forecasting model, and create a vendor performance scorecard that triggers automatic backup orders when primary vendor delivery times exceed threshold. She pushed the laptop back across the table. That alone would cut your stockout incidence by approximately 40% based on the historical data. Probably more once you account for the weather patterns your current model is missing. Deadened silence. Patricia was smiling, her eyes bright. Jonathan was nodding slowly, a small smile playing at his lips. Derek's face had gone carefully neutral, the kind of blank expression people used when they'd been proven wrong and didn't want to admit it. Lucky guess, he said finally. It wasn't a guess, Maya said evenly. It's data analysis, pattern recognition, root cause identification. Which is what you'd be hiring me to do. Derek's jaw tightened. The model you're critiquing was built by our senior team, including me. You're saying we missed something obvious? Maya chose her words carefully. I'm saying there's always room for improvement. I'm not criticizing the work. I'm looking at the data with fresh eyes and seeing a variable that could be added. Fresh eyes. Derek's voice had gone cold. Is that what we're calling inexperience now? Derek. Jonathan's voice was quiet but firm. That's enough. Derek sat back, lips pressed together. The interview continued for another 30 minutes. Patricia asked about software tools: SQL, Python, R, Tableau. Maya answered each one, sometimes demonstrating knowledge on Derek's laptop when he demanded proof. Jonathan asked thoughtful questions about her problem-solving approach, her experience working with non-technical stakeholders, her career goals. His questions felt genuine, like he actually cared about the answers. Derek's questions all had edges. How do you handle criticism? Can you work with people who have more experience than you? What would you do if a senior team member disagreed with your analysis? Every question was a test Maya hadn't studied for. Every answer felt like it could be the wrong one. By the time Patricia finally said, "I think we have everything we need," Maya felt like she'd run a marathon. "We'll be in touch by Friday," Patricia said, walking Maya to the elevator. "You did really well. Seriously, that analysis you did, I've been saying we need to look at vendor concentration for months." "Thank you," Maya said. In the elevator alone, Maya let out a breath she'd been holding for 2 hours. Her hands were shaking, her blouse was damp with sweat under the cardigan. Her mind was replaying every answer, every response, looking for the places she'd failed. It's textbook, lucky guess. Fresh eyes, the way Derek had looked at her, the way he'd said diversity like it was a dirty word. But Jonathan had intervened. Patricia had been supportive. She'd solved that problem in 20 minutes. She'd done well. She knew she'd done well. So why did she feel like she'd failed? The elevator doors opened. Maya walked through the marble lobby, past the beautiful receptionist and the waterfall wall, out into the November sunshine. Her phone buzzed immediately. Lucas. Well, she didn't know how to answer. The interview had been good. She'd been good. But there was something in Derek's eyes, the way he'd looked at her, that told her it might not matter. She texted back, "Went okay, tell you more later." Then she walked to the bus stop and tried to decide if she'd just won or lost. The days that followed moved slowly, each one stretching out like taffy. Tuesday morning, Maya woke with a start, grabbing for her phone before she remembered it was only the first day. They'd said by Friday. It was unreasonable to expect anything yet, but she checked her email anyway. Nothing. She tried to work. Had a freelance project due by end of week, a database optimization for a local bakery that was struggling with their inventory system. Simple work, the kind she could normally do in her sleep. But she kept losing her place, kept forgetting which table she was working on, had to start over 3 times because her mind kept drifting back to that conference room, to Derek's face when she'd finished the analysis. That careful neutrality that could have meant anything. To Patricia's warm smile that might have just been politeness, to Jonathan's nod that might have been approval, or might have just been acknowledgement that she'd finished speaking. Tuesday afternoon, Lucas got home from school and found her staring at her laptop, the same spreadsheet she'd been looking at for 2 hours. Did they call? Not yet. It's only Tuesday. I know. Then stop checking your phone every 5 minutes. I'm not checking it every 5 minutes. Lucas raised an eyebrow, picked up her phone from beside her laptop, unlocked it. Your screen time report says you've unlocked your phone 73 times today. It's 2:30. Maya grabbed the phone back. That's not helpful. Maybe do something to distract yourself. Go for a walk or something. She did go for a walk, around the block. Phone in her pocket, volume turned all the way up so she wouldn't miss it if it rang. She was back in 15 minutes, breathing hard like she'd been running. Wednesday was worse. She woke every hour through the night, checking the time, calculating how many hours until a reasonable time to expect a call. By 6 a.m., she was wide awake, staring at her phone like she could will it to ring. The bakery project was due Thursday. She forced herself to focus, got it done by early afternoon, sent it off and immediately regretted not taking more time with it. What if she'd made a mistake? What if the client wasn't happy? What if word got around that Maya Chen did sloppy work and she couldn't get freelance clients anymore? And then when Hartwell didn't call, she'd have nothing. The spiral of anxiety was familiar, worn smooth by 3 years of constant financial stress. She tried to breathe through it, tried to remember what her father used to say. Worry is just prayer for what you don't want. Focus on what you can control. But what could she control? The interview was over. The decision was made or being made. She could only wait. Wednesday evening, Eleanor called. Just checking in, dear. How are you holding up? I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. Eleanor's voice was gentle. I can hear the stress in your voice. They said by Friday. It's only Wednesday. I'm just being impatient. You're allowed to be nervous. This is important. What if they don't call? Then it wasn't meant to be. And you'll find something else. You're too talented not to. But Maya wasn't sure she believed that. Talented people ended up unemployed all the time. Talented people got passed over for people with connections, people who look the part, people who fit in more easily. Thursday morning arrived with gray skies and a cold drizzle. Maya checked her email at 6 a.m. Nothing from Hartwell. 3 new spam emails and a reminder that her car insurance was due. She deleted the spam and stared at the insurance notice. $237, due in a week. Money she didn't have yet. She made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened her bank account on her phone. $412.63. That was everything. Every penny she had in the world. Enough to pay the insurance and rent, or enough to buy groceries and pay the electric bill. Not enough for both. If Hartwell called today, she'd get her first paycheck in 2 weeks, could catch up on everything, could breathe. If they didn't call, she'd have to figure out which bill to let slide. Again. Thursday afternoon, Lucas came home to find her in the same place she'd been that morning. Same coffee cup, now cold. Same position at the table, same phone in her hand. Maya, his voice was firm. You need to stop. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've been sitting here all day. I've been working. Your laptop isn't even on. Maya looked down. He was right. The laptop was closed. She'd been staring at her phone for how long? She checked the time. 3 hours. Come on. Lucas pulled her up from the chair. We're going to make dinner. Something complicated that requires actual attention. You're going to help me and you're going to leave your phone in here. I can't just... Yes, you can. If they call, they'll leave a message. You can call them back. The world won't end if you're not staring at your phone for 30 minutes. They made spaghetti, from scratch, with Lucas reading the recipe off a website on his tablet, and Maya measuring ingredients with shaking hands. It was the most complicated thing they'd cooked in months. They didn't have all the right ingredients, so they improvised. Used canned tomatoes instead of fresh. Skipped the wine because they didn't have any. Added extra garlic because why not? It smelled good. Tasted better. They ate together at the small table, and Lucas told her about his day. About the science project he was working on. About Marcus getting in trouble for talking back to the teacher. About the robotics club he'd been researching online, even though he couldn't join yet. For 30 minutes, Maya didn't think about the interview. For 30 minutes, she was just Lucas's sister, eating spaghetti, listening to him talk. Then she checked her phone. Still nothing. Thursday night, she lay in bed and let herself imagine the worst. They weren't going to call. Derek had convinced Jonathan and Patricia that she wasn't qualified. Or maybe they'd found someone better. Someone with more experience. someone who'd gone to a better school, someone who didn't have the complication of being a diversity hire. That phrase kept circling back, diversity hire. The way Derek had said it, like her presence was a checkbox exercise, like she was there to make numbers look good rather than to actually contribute. Maybe he was right. Maybe she'd only gotten the second interview because of Eleanor, because Jonathan felt obligated. Maybe the whole thing had been performative from the start. She rolled over, pulled the blanket over her head, tried to sleep. Couldn't. Friday morning arrived. Maya woke at 6, couldn't go back to sleep, made coffee, stared at her phone, checked her email. Nothing. By 10, she'd given up pretending to work. Just sat on the couch, phone in hand, willing it to ring. By noon, she'd started composing mental scripts for what she'd say to Lucas when she had to tell him it didn't work out. At 2:47, she was at the grocery store, standing in the peanut butter aisle, trying to decide between the name brand and the store brand, trying to calculate how many more meals she could stretch the $43 in her account to cover. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Spam calls were constant, but something made her swipe to accept. Is this Maya Chen? Yes. This is Patricia Morgan from Hartwell Technologies. Do you have a moment? Maya's heart stopped. She abandoned her cart right there in the middle of the aisle and walked quickly toward the front of the store, phone pressed to her ear. Yes, I have a moment. We'd like to offer you the position. Patricia's voice was warm, genuinely happy. Junior data analyst, starting salary $52,000. Full benefits package starting after your 90-day probation period. Can you start Monday? Maya stopped walking. A woman with a cart full of groceries had to swerve around her, muttering something annoyed. But Maya didn't care. Are you? She started, voice catching. Are you serious? Completely serious. We were very impressed with your interview, especially your analysis of the supply chain problem. You showed exactly the kind of thinking we need on our team. Yes, I can start Monday. Thank you so much. Welcome to Hartwell Technologies, Maya. I'll send over the offer letter and new hire paperwork this afternoon. Congratulations. Maya hung up and stood in the front of the grocery store and cried. Right there in public, tears streaming down her face while shoppers moved around her and a cashier watched with concern. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. She left without buying anything, ran outside and called Lucas, who was at Miss Chen's after school. I got it, she said the second he answered. Lucas, I got the job. His whoop of joy was so loud, she had to hold the phone away from her ear. In the background, she heard Miss Chen asking what happened and Lucas shouting, My sister got the job, the big job. That night, Maya took Lucas out for pizza. Real pizza from Gino's. The place they used to go with their father on special occasions. The place they hadn't been able to afford in 3 years. The restaurant smelled the same, garlic and baking bread and that particular scent of a wood-fired oven. Lucas's eyes went wide when they walked in. We're really going here? We're really going here. They sat in a booth near the window. The same booth, Maya realized, where they'd sat for Lucas's 7th birthday. The last birthday before their father died. She could almost see him across the table, laughing at some joke Lucas had told, tomato sauce on his chin. Lucas ordered 2 slices of pepperoni and breadsticks and a Coke. Maya didn't say no to any of it, didn't calculate the cost in her head, didn't worry about what it meant for the grocery budget next week. For the first time in 3 years, she just said yes. I knew it, Lucas said around his first massive bite of pizza, cheese stringing from his mouth to the slice. I told you. You did. So we can stay in the apartment? Yeah, we can stay. And pay the bills on time? And pay the bills on time. Maybe even save a little? Maya felt her throat tighten. Maybe even save a little. Can we get Netflix? Don't push it. But she was smiling. Lucas was smiling. For a moment, sitting in that booth, it felt like maybe things were going to be okay. What about new shoes? Lucas asked, looking down at his feet under the table. Maya looked too. The sneakers were held together with duct tape in 2 places. The soles were separating from the uppers. They were at least a size too small. Lucas had stopped complaining about them months ago, but she knew they hurt his feet. New shoes, she agreed. This weekend. We'll go to the mall and you can pick out whatever you want. Whatever I want? Within reason. Lucas grinned. And the robotics club? Maya had looked into it. $200 for the semester, supplies and materials, and a trip to a competition in Savannah in the spring. $200 that 3 days ago would have been impossible. Now it was just tight. Yeah, if we budget right, if I'm careful. You're always careful. Well, now I can be careful with a little more money. They clinked their soda cups together like champagne glasses, the red plastic making a dull thunk instead of a crystal ring. But it felt like celebrating anyway. When the check came, Maya paid with her debit card. Watch the receipt print out. $32.47. 6 months ago, that would have been groceries for a week. Now it was just dinner, just a celebration, just a normal thing that normal families did. Walking home, Lucas slipped his hand into hers. He was getting too old for hand-holding. She knew, too aware of what the other kids might think. But tonight, he didn't seem to care. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what? For not giving up, for keeping trying, for everything." Maya squeezed his hand. "I promised Dad I'd take care of you. I always keep my promises." "I know, but still, thank you." Back at the apartment, Maya tucked Lucas in, even though he protested he was too old for that. She sat on the edge of his bed and brushed the hair back from his forehead like their father used to do. "You're going to do great at this job," Lucas said, eyes already half closed. "You're going to show them." "Show them what?" "That they were right to hire you, that you belong there." After he fell asleep, Maya sat on the couch in the quiet apartment and let herself feel it, really feel it. The relief washing over her in waves, the accomplishment settling into her bones, the sheer impossibility of the last 5 days somehow resolving into this moment of peace. She thought about Eleanor on that bus, about the choice she'd made, about how easy it would have been to stay in her seat, to look away, to arrive at the interview on time with clean clothes and a perfect resume. She'd have gotten the job that way too, maybe, or maybe not. But she wouldn't have met Eleanor, wouldn't have had the conversation in the rain about being seen, wouldn't have understood what it meant to stop when everyone else kept going. Her phone buzzed. "Eleanor, I heard the news. I'm so proud of you, dear. You earned this. Never forget that. You earned every bit of it." Maya typed back slowly, one thumb at a time. "Thank you. For everything. For seeing me." The response came quickly. That's what people do when they really look. They see what matters. Maya pulled out the photo of her father, the one she kept in the kitchen drawer, studied his face in the dim light from the street lamp outside. "I did it, Dad. I got the job. I'm going to take care of Lucas. I'm going to make you proud." She'd been making promises to a dead man for 3 years, promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Tonight felt like the first time one of them had come true. She fell asleep on the couch, phone still in her hand, father's photo on the cushion beside her. For the first time in as long as she could remember, she slept without dreaming, without the constant background anxiety about money or bills, or what would happen if she couldn't hold everything together. She slept like someone who'd finally made it home. Friday night became Saturday morning. Maya woke to Lucas shaking her shoulder. "You slept on the couch all night." She sat up, joints protesting. "What time is it?" 9. "You never sleep this late." Maya stretched, feeling muscles she'd forgotten she had. "I guess I was tired." "Are we still going shoe shopping?" She'd almost forgotten. Yeah, let's go." They took the bus to the mall. The same bus route, different direction. Maya looked at the priority seating section and thought about Eleanor. Wondered how she was healing. Made a mental note to call her later. At the shoe store, Lucas tried on 7 different pairs before settling on a pair of Nike running shoes. They were on sale, but still more than Maya had planned to spend. She bought them anyway. Watched his face light up when the cashier handed him the box. On the way out, they passed the tech store. Lucas stopped, looking at the laptops in the window. The sign advertised a back-to-school sale even though it was nearly December. "Maybe someday," Maya said. Lucas shook his head. "You don't have to buy me everything at once. The shoes are enough, more than enough." But she made another mental note. Christmas was coming. Maybe she could save enough for a used laptop, something for his schoolwork, something that wasn't the ancient desktop they shared that took 10 minutes to boot up. That evening, Maya sat down and made a real budget. Not the desperate triage she'd been doing for 3 years, deciding which bill could slide another week. A real budget with categories and allocations, and even a small amount for savings. Rent, electric, water, internet, phone, groceries, Lucas's school expenses, his robotics club, transportation, and at the bottom, a line that read emergency fund. She allocated $50 to it for the first month. $50 that would grow slowly but surely into something real. She thought about her father's advice. Take care of your brother. the promise she'd carried like a weight. Maybe she was finally learning how to carry it right. Sunday morning, she called Eleanor. The phone rang 4 times before Eleanor answered, voice warm and slightly out of breath. Maya, dear, I was just thinking about you. How are you feeling? Better every day. The hip is healing well. Physical therapy is torture, but I'm making progress. They talked for almost an hour. About the job, about Lucas's new shoes, about Eleanor's plans to have them over for dinner once she was fully mobile again. I've been thinking, Eleanor said toward the end of the call, about starting a scholarship program. For students like you, students who have to work twice as hard for half the recognition, students who need a chance. That would be amazing. I'd like your help. With the criteria. With figuring out how to find the right candidates. You understand what it's like in a way I never will. I'd be honored. After they hung up, Maya sat with her phone in her hand, thinking about the future. Not just the next week or the next month, but the next year, the next 5 years, the shape of a life that might actually work. Monday morning would come, a new job, new challenges, new people to prove herself to. But for now, for this Sunday afternoon in November with bills paid and shoes bought and pizza eaten and promises kept, Maya let herself be grateful for Eleanor who'd seen her, for Lucas who believed in her, for her father who'd taught her, for the choice she'd made on a rainy morning that had changed everything, for stopping when everyone else kept going, for being seen. Monday morning arrived with Maya standing in front of her closet at 5:30, staring at the black skirt and white blouse she'd laid out the night before. The same outfit from the interview, still the best she had. She put it on slowly, carefully, like armor, checked herself in the mirror. Professional enough, competent enough, good enough. Lucas was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. Big day, he said. Big day, she agreed. You're going to be great. Maya kissed the top of his head. I hope so. The bus ride to Hartwell Technologies felt different than it had a week ago. Then she'd been desperate, clinging to a chance she might not get. Now she had the job, had the salary, had the opportunity. But the weight of it sat heavy in her chest. What if she couldn't do it? What if Derek had been right to doubt her? What if she'd gotten in over her head? She arrived at 8:45, 15 minutes early. Walked through the marble lobby where the receptionist recognized her this time. Welcome back, Ms. Chen. Badge is at the front desk. The badge was permanent now. Not the red visitor sticker, but a real ID card with her photo and name and the title Junior Data Analyst printed beneath it. She clipped it to her blouse and took the elevator to the 15th floor. Patricia met her in the lobby. Good morning, Maya. Ready for your first day? Ready as I'll be. Don't worry, we'll start with the basics. Get you set up, introduce you to the team, walk through our systems. Nothing too overwhelming. But it was overwhelming. The tour took 2 hours, and with every stop, Maya felt the distance between her life and this one growing wider. Conference rooms named after pioneers in technology. Ada Lovelace, Grace Hopper, Alan Turing, Bill Gates. Each one had glass walls that made everything visible, expensive. Herman Miller chairs that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and massive screens for presentations mounted on walls painted in soft grays. The kitchen was a revelation. 3 espresso machines, each one more complicated than the last. A dedicated tea station with more varieties than Maya had known existed. Green tea, and black tea, and white tea, and things called rooibos and oolong that she'd never heard of. An entire refrigerator stocked with kombucha and La Croix, and cold brew coffee in glass bottles. Another refrigerator with salads and sandwiches and fresh fruit already cut and arranged in containers. Snacks lined open shelving. Protein bars in a dozen flavors. Granola and trail mix and nuts arranged by type. Organic. Fair trade. The labels said things like ethically sourced and sustainably harvested. We believe in taking care of our team, Patricia said, gesturing to it all with obvious pride. Help yourself to anything. We restock every Monday and Thursday. Maya nodded, tried to look appreciative, tried not to think about the instant coffee she made at home, heating water in a kettle because their coffee maker had broken 6 months ago, and she hadn't been able to afford a new one. Tried not to think about the generic cereal Lucas ate every morning, the same box lasting 2 weeks because they rationed it carefully. Tried not to think about the careful budgeting that meant buying the store brand of everything, comparing unit prices in the grocery store, calculating whether they could afford the extra 30 cents for the name brand. All this abundance felt wrong, wasteful, and necessary at the same time. How much food got thrown away at the end of each week? How many protein bars went uneaten while she was rationing peanut butter at home to make the jar last another week? But she said nothing, just smiled and nodded, and made mental notes about which snacks Lucas might like if she ever felt comfortable enough to take some home. They have a gym, Patricia continued, showing her the fitness center, treadmills and weights and yoga mats, and a meditation room. She opened a door to reveal a space with dim lighting and cushions on the floor, and the gentle sound of running water from hidden speakers. For when you need to decompress, Patricia explained. Maya nodded, trying to imagine herself coming here to meditate, trying to picture taking time during the workday to sit on a cushion and breathe. It felt like something people in a different tax bracket did. The analytics department occupied the northeast corner of the 15th floor, 40 desks arranged in clusters. Everyone had dual monitors and ergonomic chairs that probably cost more than Maya's monthly rent. The color scheme was white and chrome, and that particular shade of blue that seemed to be in every tech office. Patricia led her through the space. People looked up from their work, faces curious or neutral or already turning back to their screens. Everyone, this is Maya Chen, our new junior data analyst. Maya, this is the team. She rattled off names. Tom, white guy, maybe 30, with a carefully groomed beard and thick-framed glasses. He gave a brief nod and went back to his keyboard. Emma, white woman, late 20s, blonde hair pulled into a high ponytail. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Bradley, white guy, early 30s, wearing a polo shirt and expensive watch. He was on a phone call and waved absently. More names: Mike, Jennifer, David, Rachel. All white. All polite in that careful way that meant they were being watched by HR. All giving her the kind of smile you give someone you don't really see. And this is Carmen Rodriguez, Patricia said, stopping at a desk near the windows. Carmen is our senior data scientist. She'll be your team lead for the first few weeks. Carmen looked up and her smile was different. Genuine. It reached her eyes and crinkled the corners. She was maybe 35, Latina, with tired eyes that said she'd been here long enough to know how things worked. Hey, she said, standing to shake Maya's hand. Welcome to the team. I've heard good things. Thank you, Maya said, and meant it. The warmth in Carmen's greeting felt like the first real welcome she'd received. Your desk is right here. Carmen gestured to the empty workstation next to hers. We're neighbors. If you have any questions, just ask. Patricia left them to it. Carmen helped Maya log into the system, showed her where files were stored, explained the project management software they used, how to submit timesheets, how to request access to databases, the practical things that nobody tells you until you need them. Derek will be in around 10, Carmen said. He likes to do one-on-ones with new team members. Just be prepared. He can be intense. Intense how? Carmen chose her words carefully. He cares a lot about the work, about the department's reputation. He built this team from 3 people to 40. He's protective of what he's created. And he doesn't like change. Carmen's expression said Maya had understood correctly. He doesn't like surprises. But you'll be fine. You impressed him in the interview. The supply chain analysis, that was good work. He said it was a lucky guess. He says that about everyone at first. It's his way of keeping people humble. Just do the work and he'll come around. At 10:15, Derek appeared at Maya's desk. Ms. Chen, my office. 15 minutes. His office was in this corner. Glass walls like everything else, but with blinds that could be closed for privacy. A desk that was aggressively neat. No papers, no clutter. Just a laptop and a monitor, and a single-framed photo of what looked like a younger Derek at a college graduation. He gestured for Maya to sit, close the blinds. I want to be clear about expectations, he said without preamble. This is a high-performing team. We work hard. We deliver quality results. We don't have room for people who can't keep up. I understand. You got this job because you showed potential in the interview. But potential isn't the same as performance. You'll start with basic tasks. Data validation, cleaning, quality assurance. As you prove yourself, you'll get more complex assignments. How long does that usually take? Depends on the person. Some people are ready in a few months, some take longer. Some never make it past the basics. He leaned back in his chair. I've been doing this for 15 years. I can usually tell within the first month who's going to make it and who's going to wash out. So my advice to you is simple. Keep your head down. Do the work you're assigned. Don't try to show off. Don't try to prove you're smarter than the people who've been here longer. Just do your job. Maya felt her jaw tighten. Understood. Good. Carmen will get you started on your first assignment. We have a backlog of data sets that need cleaning. Start with those. He turned to his computer. The meeting was over. Back at her desk, Carmen gave her an apologetic look. Rough? About what I expected. He does that with everyone. It's not personal. Maya wanted to believe that. Wanted to think Derek's skepticism was just his management style and not something more specific. But she'd heard the emphasis he put on certain words. Don't try to show off. Don't try to prove you're smarter. The unspoken addition hung in the air. Don't forget you're here to fill a quota. The first assignment was exactly what Derek had said. Data cleaning. A massive spreadsheet with 3 years of vendor records. Inconsistent formatting, duplicate entries, missing data, fields that didn't match across different time periods. The kind of work that was necessary but mind-numbing. Maya dove into it, created a system, sorted and filtered and corrected, built macros to automate some of the repetitive tasks. By end of day, she'd cleaned 2 years' worth of data. More than Derek had expected, Carmen said. More than most new analysts managed in their first week. But it was still just cleaning, still just grunt work. The days blurred together in a rhythm that felt designed to break her spirit. Tuesday morning, more data cleaning. A different vendor database this time, but the same kind of problems. Inconsistent formats, missing fields, records that didn't match across systems. She built macros to automate parts of it, wrote validation rules, worked methodically through thousands of rows. Around her, the real work happened. Tom was in a meeting with Derek, visible through the glass walls, presenting something on a screen. Emma was on a call with a vendor, her voice confident and professional as she negotiated contract terms. Bradley was deep in a complex spreadsheet, building what looked like an optimization algorithm. Maya cleaned data. Wednesday brought quality assurance work, someone else's analysis that needed to be checked. She went through it line by line, found 3 errors in the formulas, corrected them, documented the changes, sent it back. Never got a thank you. Never got acknowledgement that her corrections had saved someone from presenting bad numbers to a client. Thursday was validating formulas in a pricing model. Friday was formatting a presentation deck for Derek, adjusting fonts, making sure the colors matched the corporate brand guidelines, moving bullet points 2 pixels to the left because Derek said they looked unbalanced. None of it was analytical work. None of it used the skills she'd spent 4 years developing. It was all support, all background, all the invisible labor that made other people's work possible, while they got the credit and the interesting projects and the career advancement. The worst part was the casual invisibility of it. Tuesday afternoon, Tom and Emma had a 15-minute conversation about the new brewery that had opened in Virginia Highland, talked about the IPAs they'd tried, the food trucks that showed up on weekends. They stood 3 feet from Maya's desk, never once acknowledged she was there, never once included her, or even glanced her direction. Wednesday morning, Bradley needed to get to the printer. Maya's chair was in the way. He stood there waiting, not saying anything, just waiting for her to notice and move. When she looked up and saw him, he didn't say, "Excuse me," or "Sorry to interrupt," just walked past once she'd moved, grabbed his printout, walked back, like she was a piece of furniture that had been temporarily blocking his path. Thursday at lunch, Jennifer and Rachel were talking about a new project they'd been assigned, some kind of customer behavior analysis for a retail client. They were excited about it, talking about the interesting patterns they were finding, the insights they were uncovering. Maya was eating her turkey sandwich 10 feet away. They knew she could hear, but they talked like she wasn't there. It wasn't hostile. That was almost worse. It was just absent, like she was a non-person, like she didn't merit the basic courtesy of acknowledgement, like her presence or absence made no difference to their day. Carmen sat down with her Tupperware of leftovers, rice and beans and chicken that smelled amazing. They ate in silence for a moment before Carmen said, "I know what you're thinking." "What am I thinking?" "That this isn't what you signed up for. That you're wasting your degree cleaning spreadsheets." Maya put her sandwich down. "Am I that obvious?" "You're not the first person to feel that way. Hell, I felt that way my first 6 months. I have a master's from Stanford, and they had me doing data entry. How long before it got better? For me? About 4 months before I got to touch actual analysis. But I'm Latina. For you. Carmen didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. They sat with that truth between them. I'm not trying to discourage you, Carmen said finally. You're good. Really good. That supply chain analysis you did in the interview, that was senior level thinking. But Derek runs this department like a hierarchy. You have to earn your way up. And some people have to earn harder than others. It's not fair. No, it's not. But it's the reality. Maya thought about walking out, about finding another job at a company that would actually use her skills. But she needed the salary, needed the stability, needed to keep Lucas in school and food on the table and the lights on. She didn't have the luxury of principles over paychecks. Week 2 was more of the same. Derek gave her a never-ending stream of cleaning assignments, data from old projects that needed to be standardized, files that needed to be organized, documentation that needed to be updated. All necessary work, all completely beneath her capabilities. She watched Tom and Bradley and Emma working on actual analysis, building models, running regressions, presenting findings, the work she'd been hired to do, the work they were keeping from her. Around her, the casual exclusion continued. Tom and Emma would have conversations about their weekend plans without acknowledging Maya was sitting right there. Bradley would ask Carmen a technical question and act like Maya was invisible even though she was literally between them. Mike would use the printer next to her desk and not even make eye contact. It wasn't hostile. That was almost worse. It was just absent, like she was furniture, like she didn't merit the basic courtesy of acknowledgement. Carmen was different. She asked Maya about her weekend, invited her to lunch, explained the office politics in quiet asides, warned her which projects were going well and which ones were disasters waiting to happen. The small kindnesses mattered more than Carmen probably knew. On Thursday of the second week, Maya arrived early, 7:30 instead of 9. Wanted to get ahead on the cleaning backlog, prove she could handle more. The office was mostly empty, just a few early risers at their desks. She was deep into a spreadsheet when Derek arrived at 8:15. He stopped at her desk. You're here early? Wanted to make progress on the vendor data. He studied her for a moment. His expression was unreadable. You finished the Acme project? Yesterday afternoon. On time? 2 days early. Another long look. Then he nodded once and walked to his office. It wasn't praise, but it wasn't criticism either. Maya took it as progress. Week 3 brought the announcement everyone had been waiting for. Derek called a team meeting in the Ada Lovelace conference room. Everyone gathered. 40 people crammed into a space meant for 30. Derek stood at the front with a presentation already loaded on the screen. All right, everyone, we've just signed our biggest contract of the year. He clicked to the next slide. The Retail Max logo filled the screen. Maya recognized it immediately. The data set from her interview, the supply chain problem she'd solved in 20 minutes. Retail Max is giving us access to 3 years of purchase data, inventory logs, delivery records, sales figures, the works. The contract is worth $2.3 million over 2 years. This is huge for us. People around the table nodded, murmured appreciation. This was the kind of project that made careers. They want us to optimize their supply chain, Derek continued. Cut costs, reduce stockouts, improve delivery times. They're hemorrhaging money on inefficiency, and they need us to find it and fix it. This is high-profile work. If we do this right, we're looking at contract renewals, possible expansion to their other divisions, testimonials that will bring in more clients. He clicked through several slides showing timelines and deliverables and revenue projections. Then came the team assignments. Tom, you'll handle demand forecasting. Emma, vendor analysis and relationship management. Bradley, logistics optimization and routing. Carmen, you're on overall model architecture and integration. He paused, looked at Maya. Maya, you'll handle data validation and cleaning. This is a massive data set, probably the biggest you've worked with. We need it clean, standardized, and ready for analysis. That's critical foundation work. Of course that's what she'd get. The foundation work, the invisible labor, the thing that had to be done but that no one would credit or appreciate. Happy to help wherever I'm needed, she said, kept her voice neutral. The work was intense, long hours, tight deadlines, client pressure that filtered down through Derek to the team. Everyone worked late most nights. Derek brought in dinner, fancy takeout from local restaurants, Thai food, Mexican, Italian. They'd eat in the conference room while working, a forced camaraderie that felt hollow to Maya. She noticed things. Tom and Emma joking about something while she sat 3 feet away, not included. Bradley asking Carmen about a technical problem, and not even glancing at Maya for input. The small conversations that happened around her like she wasn't there. Only Carmen made space for her, asked her opinion, included her in discussions, acknowledged her presence. But the data cleaning work was real. Maya dove into it with the same systematic approach she'd used in the interview. 3 years of messy records, inconsistent vendor codes, duplicate entries, missing timestamps, regional variations in how different facilities recorded the same information. It was a disaster. She built tools to automate the cleaning, wrote scripts to standardize formats, created validation rules to catch errors, worked through the data methodically, region by region, category by category. It took 2 weeks, but she got it done. Every record clean, every field standardized, every duplicate removed. Derek didn't say thank you, just moved her to the next cleaning task. Quality assurance on the demand forecasting data Tom was using. It was while validating Tom's data that Maya noticed something. Friday night of week 3, 10 o'clock. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. The office was dark except for the glow of her monitor and the city lights coming through the windows. The cleaning crew had been through already, leaving the smell of lemon disinfectant and the hum of the HVAC system as the only sounds. Maya should have been home, should have been with Lucas, but she wanted to finish, wanted to get ahead, wanted to prove she could handle more than just cleaning data. She was going through Tom's forecasting model one more time, making sure everything matched, making sure the numbers added up, making sure there weren't any errors that would embarrass the team in front of the client. Tom's algorithm was solid. She could see that clearly. He'd built something sophisticated, historical sales data going back 5 years, seasonal trend analysis with monthly and quarterly breakdowns, promotional calendar integration that accounted for holidays and sales events, regional variation modeling, SKU-level granularity. It was good work, professional work, the kind of thing that took real skill to build. But Maya kept thinking about the interview, about the 20 minutes she'd spent with this same data set, about the solution she'd proposed, about the weather variable she'd identified as missing. That had been 3 weeks ago. Had anyone actually implemented it? Or had it been dismissed as a lucky guess, filed away and forgotten? She pulled up the sales data again, not just glancing at it this time, really digging in, exported it to her own workspace where she could manipulate it without changing Tom's files. Cross-referenced it with historical weather patterns. She found a free database of hurricane tracking data going back 10 years, downloaded it, mapped major storm events against sales spikes in the southeast region. The correlation wasn't just there, it was screaming. During hurricane season, June through November, the pattern was clear as day. Water sales spiked 3 to 5 days before a major storm made landfall. Batteries followed the same pattern. Canned goods, first aid supplies, flashlights, anything people needed to shelter in place. The spikes were massive, sometimes 200% above baseline, sometimes more. And it was predictable. Not random, not anomalous. You could almost set your watch by it. When the Weather Channel showed a tropical depression forming in the Atlantic, sales started climbing. When the storm got upgraded to hurricane status, sales jumped again. When it turned toward the coast, another spike. The pattern repeated every single time. Maya pulled up Tom's model again, looked at how it handled those spikes, and there it was. The model treated them as anomalies, statistical outliers to be smoothed out in the overall trend. The algorithm literally discounted them as noise. It saw those huge spikes in sales and said, no, that's not normal, ignore it, go back to the baseline, which meant the forecasts were systematically wrong during the most critical times. When demand was highest, when people needed products most, when there was actual risk of stockouts that would hurt both revenue and customer satisfaction. The model said everything was normal. Maya ran the numbers, calculated the error margin, 42.3% during hurricane season. For a supply chain this size, for a client this big, that translated to millions of dollars in potential stockouts over the course of a year, millions of dollars in lost revenue, millions of dollars in frustrated customers who couldn't get the products they needed when they needed them most. She sat back in her chair, stared at her screen. The evidence was right there. Undeniable. Mathematical. True. And she had no idea what to do with it. If she brought this up, she'd be questioning Tom's work. Tom, who'd been here 5 years. Tom, who was Derek's right hand on this project. Tom, who already treated her like she didn't exist. Tom, who would see this as a personal attack, as some junior analyst trying to make him look bad, trying to take credit, trying to show off. It would make waves, big waves. It would mark her as difficult, as someone who didn't understand team dynamics, as someone who couldn't just do her job without trying to prove she was smarter than everyone else. Derek's voice echoed in her head from that first day. Don't try to show off. Don't try to prove you're smarter than the people who've been here longer. Just do your job. But this was her job, wasn't it? Finding problems, fixing them, making the work better. That's what data analysis was supposed to be. Not just cleaning up other people's messes, not just validating what they'd already done, but actually analyzing, actually thinking, actually contributing. And if she stayed silent, the model would have a systematic blind spot. Retail Max would experience stockouts they shouldn't have. Customers would be frustrated. Revenue would be lost. Hartwell's reputation would take a hit. The client might not renew the contract. Real consequences. Real problems. All because she was too afraid to speak up. She thought about her father, heard his voice as clearly as if he were sitting next to her in the empty office. Do the right thing even when it costs you. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Your voice matters as much as anyone else's. She thought about Eleanor on that bus, about getting off when every rational part of her brain screamed to stay on, about choosing principle over convenience, about doing what was right instead of what was easy. She thought about Lucas, about the example she was setting, about what she wanted him to learn from her life. Did she want him to see someone who stayed silent when she knew the truth? Someone who let fear override integrity? Or did she want him to see someone who spoke up even when it was hard? The answer was obvious. The fear was real, but the choice was clear. Monday morning, Maya sent an email to Derek. Professional, clinical, data-heavy. She attached her analysis, charts showing the correlation between weather events and sales spikes, projections of what could go wrong if they didn't account for it, comparison of forecast accuracy with and without the weather variable. She CC'd Patricia and Jonathan. Not to go around Derek, just to make sure the information got where it needed to go. At 10:47, Derek appeared at her desk. Conference room. Now. The same glass-walled room where he'd announced the Retail Max project. Tom was already there, looking confused and annoyed. Emma and Bradley were there too, watching warily. Derek closed the blinds. You think you found an error? His voice was flat. Not an error exactly, Maya said carefully. More like a missing variable that could improve accuracy. Tom's model has been reviewed by me, by Carmen, by our senior team. It's solid. I know, I'm just saying we could make it better. Derek interrupted. You've been here 3 weeks. Tom's been doing this for 5 years. You think you know better than him? I think the data shows something we should consider. The data shows what we tell it to show. Derek leaned against the table. And right now, it's showing that we're within acceptable margins. He crossed his arms. I appreciate your enthusiasm. But questioning senior team members' work isn't how we do things here. It undermines team cohesion. It creates doubt where there shouldn't be any. Tom was watching this with something like satisfaction on his face. Emma looked uncomfortable. Bradley was checking his phone. So you're not going to look at it? Maya asked. Heard her voice come out smaller than she wanted. I've looked. Derek's smile didn't reach his eyes. It's not necessary. We're on a tight deadline, and we don't have time to chase down every junior analyst's pet theory. He stood. Let it go, Maya. Focus on your assigned work. Leave the analysis to the analysts. Maya left the conference room with her hands shaking. Went to the bathroom, locked herself in a stall. Tried not to cry from frustration, from anger, from the sheer injustice of being right and being dismissed anyway. When she came out, Carmen was waiting by the sinks. I saw your email, Carmen said quietly. You're right, by the way. Then why? Because Derek doesn't like being wrong, especially not by someone new. Especially not by someone who looks like me, Maya finished. Yeah, so what do I do? Carmen's smile was sad. Same thing I do. Same thing every woman, every person of color in this building does. You document everything. You keep your head down. And you hope that eventually your work speaks louder than their bias. That's it? It is. But it's also survival. And sometimes survival is the best we can do. That night, Maya went home and couldn't sleep. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Lucas's soft breathing, the only sound in the small apartment. She kept running through scenarios. What if Derek found out? What if Tom complained? What if they decided she was more trouble than she was worth and fired her during the probation period? At 2 in the morning, she gave up on sleep, got up, made tea, sat at the kitchen table in the dark with her laptop, opened a new email, addressed it directly to Jonathan Hartwell. The cursor blinked at her, accusing, demanding. She wrote it all out, started with the facts. During my quality assurance review of the Retail Max forecasting model, I identified a systematic gap in the current approach. She attached her analysis. 16 pages of charts and graphs and statistical breakdowns, screenshots of the correlation between weather events and sales spikes, comparison tables showing forecast accuracy with and without the weather variable, projections of potential stockout incidents if the current model was implemented without modification. She made it clinical, professional, removed all emotion, let the data speak for itself. But then she added a paragraph at the end, one that probably violated every rule of corporate communication, but that she needed to say anyway. I understand that raising this issue may seem like overstepping my role as a junior analyst. I also understand that it may create friction within the team, but I believe strongly that we have an obligation to deliver the best possible work to our clients. The data clearly shows a significant gap in our current model. I would be failing in my responsibilities if I didn't bring this to your attention, even if doing so is uncomfortable. She read it 3 times, deleted the last paragraph, wrote it again, deleted it again, put it back. Her finger hovered over the send button. 5 minutes of hovering, 10 minutes, 15. This could backfire. Could make Derek her enemy permanently. Could mark her as someone who went around the chain of command. Could cost her the job she desperately needed. The job that paid for Lucas's robotics club and his new shoes and the apartment rent and the electricity bill. The job that was supposed to be her path out of poverty. The job she'd sacrificed an interview for, gotten off a bus for, helped a stranger for. But the analysis was right. She knew it was right. And if she didn't speak up, who would? She hit send, then immediately wanted to take it back. The next 2 days were torture. Maya went to work Monday morning expecting to be called into Derek's office, expecting to be fired, expecting consequences. Nothing happened. She cleaned data, validated formulas, formatted presentations, the same work she'd been doing. Derek walked past her desk twice without looking at her. Tom was in meetings all day. Carmen asked if she was okay, and Maya said fine, even though her stomach was in knots. Tuesday was worse. Every footstep in the hallway made her jump. Every time Derek emerged from his office, she braced for impact. Every email notification made her heart race. Still nothing. Wednesday afternoon, she was deep in a spreadsheet when Carmen pulled her aside. Did you notice anything different about the forecast model? Maya had been deliberately not looking at it, too afraid of what she might find. What do you mean? Pull it up. Maya opened Tom's model, looked at the latest version. The date stamp said it had been updated yesterday afternoon. And there it was. The weather variable. Hurricane tracking data integrated into the seasonal analysis. Dynamic reorder points that adjusted based on storm forecasts. Vendor backup triggers that activated when major weather events were predicted. All the changes Maya had suggested. All of them. Implemented quietly. Without fanfare. Without discussion. She looked at Carmen. When did this happen? Yesterday afternoon. Derek called Tom in. They were in his office for about 2 hours. When they came out, Tom updated the model. No explanation, no team meeting, just done. They used my analysis. Yeah. Carmen's voice was gentle. But they're never going to say that. Maya felt something complicated in her chest. Relief that she'd been right. Vindication that her work mattered. But also anger that it had to be this way. That she couldn't just raise an issue in a meeting like Tom or Bradley could. That she'd had to go around Derek to Jonathan. That even after being proven right, she'd get no acknowledgement. It's not fair, she said. No, it's not. But it's progress. They listened. The work is better. That has to count for something. Does it? Maya heard the bitterness in her own voice. When no one knows I did it? When Derek gets to pretend it was his idea all along? Carmen put a hand on her shoulder. I know, and I'm sorry, but this is how it works here. You did good work. The client is going to get a better product because of you. That matters, even if nobody says it out loud. Maya wanted to believe that. Wanted to think invisible good work was enough. But part of her wanted recognition. Wanted Derek to acknowledge she'd been right. Wanted Tom to admit his model had a flaw. Wanted Jonathan to send an email thanking her for the catch. Wanted to be seen. The following week, Retail Max came in for a project update. Derek presented in the main conference room. Maya sat in the back, watched him walk through the forecasting model, show the weather variable integration, explain how they'd identified seasonal risk factors. Retail Max loved it, called it the most sophisticated analysis they'd seen, praised the attention to detail, the forward-thinking approach. Derek accepted the praise with appropriate humility, thanked his team, mentioned Tom's strong modeling work, Emma's vendor research, Bradley's logistics optimization, Carmen's integration architecture. Never mentioned Maya. She sat there and watched him take credit for her thinking. Watched Tom nod along like it had been his idea all along. Watched the client congratulate them on work that wouldn't exist without her. After the presentation, Jonathan caught her eye across the room, gave her a small nod. Nothing more. But it was acknowledgement. He knew. That was something, but it wasn't enough. Walking to the bus stop that evening, Maya thought about her father, about the warehouse where he'd worked for 20 years, about the boxes he'd lifted until his back gave out, about the overtime he'd worked until his heart gave out, about the fact that he'd never gotten recognition either, never got promoted past the floor, never got his name on anything, never got credit for the thousands of boxes he'd moved, the systems he'd quietly improved, the problems he'd solved. But he'd done the work anyway, shown up every day, done his job with dignity even when the system didn't recognize it. Maybe that's what integrity looked like. Not the grand gestures, not the public recognition, just doing the right thing over and over again, even when nobody was watching, even when nobody said thank you, even when someone else took the credit. She pulled out her phone, texted Lucas. How was school? Good. Robotics club started today. It was awesome. Tell me about it when I get home. On the bus, she found a seat near the back. Watched the city slide past the windows. Atlanta at rush hour. Thousands of people going home from work, each one carrying their own invisible burdens, their own quiet struggles, their own uncredited victories. An elderly woman got on at the next stop. Late 70s, maybe. Struggled with her bags, groceries in plastic sacks that were too heavy for her thin arms. The bus driver didn't help, didn't even look up from his phone while he waited for her to settle. The passengers around her buried themselves deeper in their devices. Nobody moved, nobody offered. Maya stood, offered her seat, helped the woman with her bags, arranging them so they wouldn't fall when the bus moved. "Thank you, dear," the woman said. Her hands were shaking slightly as she gripped the armrest. Not many people stop anymore. Maya heard those words and felt them settle into her bones. Not many people stop anymore. She'd stopped for Eleanor 3 weeks ago, changed her whole life by stopping. And now she was stopping again. For this woman whose name she'd never know, who would forget her face by tomorrow, who represented nothing except another human being who needed help. Maybe that's who she was, the person who stopped. Not because it got her recognition, not because it advanced her career, not because anyone would thank her or remember, but because it was right. Because people mattered more than convenience. Because her father had taught her that your character was defined by what you did when nobody was watching. She thought about Derek's dismissal, about Tom's satisfaction, about Carmen's sad acceptance, about Jonathan's silent nod, the whole broken system that rewarded comfort over truth, seniority over competence, silence over speaking up. And she thought about her father working in that warehouse, about Eleanor alone on that bus, about this woman with her 2 heavy grocery bags, about all the invisible people doing invisible work that kept the world running. She was one of them now, part of that army of the uncredited, the overlooked, the essential but ignored. It wasn't the career she'd imagined when she'd walked across the stage at graduation. Wasn't the recognition she'd hoped for when she'd aced her classes and built her portfolio and dreamed about making a difference. But it was honest work, work that mattered even if no one acknowledged it, work that made things better even if she didn't get credit. And maybe that had to be enough. The bus pulled up to her stop. Maya got off and walked the 3 blocks home through the cooling evening. Streetlights flickering on, neighbors sitting on porches, kids playing basketball in a driveway. Normal life in a normal neighborhood, far from the glass towers and espresso machines and performance reviews. Lucas was waiting at the table with his homework spread out. Dinner was already started. Spaghetti again, their reliable standby. He looked up when she came in, and his face lit up the way it always did. That unconditional joy at seeing her. That reminder that she mattered to at least one person unconditionally. "How was work?" he asked. "Some complicated," she said, setting down her bag. "Tell me about Robotics Club." And as Lucas launched into an excited description of the robot they were designing, of the competition they were preparing for, of the programming concepts he was learning, Maya felt something settle in her chest. This. This was why she did it. Not for Derek's approval, not for corporate recognition, not for credit on a project. For Lucas. For his new shoes and his robotics club and his straight A's and his chance at a better life than she'd had. For the promise she'd made to their father. For the example she wanted to set about doing the right thing even when it cost you. Later, after Lucas was asleep, Maya sat on the couch with her laptop, opened her email, found the message she'd sent to Jonathan 3 days ago, read it again, felt that same mix of pride and fear and determination. She'd done the right thing. The model was better. The work was better. Retail Max was going to get better service. Hundreds of thousands of customers would get the products they needed during hurricane season. The math worked. The analysis was sound. The outcome was better. That had to be enough, even if no one ever knew. Even if Derek never acknowledged it. Even if she stayed invisible forever. She'd stopped when everyone else kept going. On a bus 3 weeks ago. In an office this week, on another bus this evening, and she'd do it again tomorrow and the day after and every day after that. 'Cause that's who she was. The person who stopped. The person who did the right thing. The person who made things better even when nobody was watching. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most important kind of work there was. Week 5 started like any other. Maya arrived at 8:45, the routine so familiar now it felt almost comfortable. Badge clipped to her blouse. Coffee from home in a travel mug because the office espresso machine still felt too presumptuous after 5 weeks. She settled at her desk, the chair adjusted to exactly the right height, the keyboard positioned just so, logged into the system with the password she'd memorized so thoroughly she could type it in her sleep. Her current assignment was already pulled up from Friday. A vendor compliance database that needed to be standardized before the legal team could use it for contract renewals. Tedious work, necessary work. The kind of invisible labor she'd become expert at. Around her, the usual morning sounds. Tom on a call with a client, his voice confident as he walked through quarterly projections. Emma typing rapidly, probably responding to the flood of emails that accumulated over weekends. Bradley scrolling through code on his monitor, occasionally muttering to himself about syntax errors. Carmen not in yet. She usually arrived at 9. Often with coffee from the place down the street that made the good lattes. Maya pulled up her spreadsheet, took a sip of lukewarm coffee from home, started working through the vendor records. Column by column, row by row, the rhythm of it almost meditative. At 9:47, 2 people from IT appeared at her desk. Maya looked up, startled. She recognized them vaguely from the handful of times she'd needed tech support. A young woman, maybe 25, with nervous eyes and hands that fidgeted with her ID badge. An older man, maybe 50, with gray hair and the flat, practiced expression of someone who'd delivered bad news too many times. "Maya Chen? Yes? We need you to come with us." Maya's stomach dropped. The way they stood. The way other people were starting to look up from their work. The careful neutrality in their voices that meant something was very wrong. "Why?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Just please come with us." The woman wouldn't meet her eyes. Tom had stopped mid-sentence on his call. Emma's fingers were frozen on her keyboard. Bradley had turned in his chair to watch. The whole office seemed to be holding its breath. Maya stood on legs that didn't feel quite steady. Around her, she could feel the weight of 40 pairs of eyes, following her as she walked between the IT staffers toward the elevator, past Carmen's empty desk, past the kitchen with its 3 espresso machines, past the meditation room she'd never used, down the hallway that led to the elevators. Nobody spoke in the elevator. Maya stared at the numbers descending, 15, 14. each floor taking her somewhere she didn't understand. The woman from IT was examining her shoes like they held the secrets of the universe. The man stared straight ahead, jaw set. They exited on 14, led her down another hallway to a conference room she'd never been in. No windows, just a table and 6 chairs and walls painted that particular institutional beige that made every corporate space look the same. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air conditioning was too cold. Already there, Derek, Patricia, someone Maya didn't recognize. The stranger was a white man in his 50s, wearing a suit that was too formal for Hartwell's business casual culture. Navy with subtle pinstripes, a tie that probably cost more than Maya made in a week, expensive watch, leather portfolio on the table, laptop open in front of him. He had the look of someone who investigated things for a living. Sharp eyes, expressionless face, the kind of person who'd seen every lie, every excuse, every desperate attempt to explain away the inexplicable. "Ms. Chen, thank you for coming." His voice was neutral, practiced, the tone of someone delivering a diagnosis. "I'm Robert Chen, Head of Information Security for Hartwell Technologies. We've detected a data breach from your account." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. The room tilted slightly. She gripped the back of the chair in front of her. "What?" 2.5 gigabytes of proprietary data was downloaded to an external drive using your login credentials last Thursday night. That data includes client information, internal financial models, and confidential strategic documents. Maya's brain struggled to process this. Data breach, her account, Thursday night. She tried to remember Thursday, left work at 6:30, went home, helped Lucas study for his math test. They'd watched an episode of that show about the robotics competition. She'd gone to bed around 10. "That's impossible." Her voice came out too high, too defensive. She could hear it and couldn't control it. "I didn't download anything. I didn't access any of that data." Robert turned his laptop toward her. The screen showed a log file, rows of data with timestamps and usernames and file paths. Technical details that meant nothing and everything. Your username, your password. Downloaded at 11:47 p.m. Thursday night. Maya stared at the screen. Her username was right there in black text on white background. Maya.Chen. The password field showed as encrypted asterisks, but the log said authentication successful on first attempt. Files downloaded from secure directories, client database containing sensitive information, financial models with revenue projections, strategic planning documents, things she'd never accessed, never had reason to access, never even knew existed. Her hands had started shaking. She pressed them flat on the table to hide it. "I wasn't here Thursday night. I left at 6:30. I was home with my brother. You can check my badge swipe records." "Can anyone verify that?" Robert's tone was still neutral. Professional, not hostile, just methodical. Building a case. "My brother, he's 10 years old." She heard how that sounded. The only person who could confirm her alibi was a child. Her 10-year-old brother, who would obviously lie for her. Who couldn't testify to anything. Who didn't make her story credible. Patricia shifted in her seat, leaned forward slightly like she wanted to reach across the table. "Ms. Chen, this is very serious. Corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information. These are criminal offenses. If you're involved, if there's any explanation, any context we should know, now is the time to tell us." "I'm not involved." Maya's throat was tight. She could barely force the words out. "I didn't download anything. I don't even know what half these files are. Why would I do this? I just started here 5 weeks ago. I need this job. I have a brother to support. Why would I risk everything?" Derek leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression carefully neutral, but there was something in his eyes, something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Data theft is often an inside job," he said, voice measured, professional. Someone gets hired, gains access to systems, builds trust over a few weeks or months, then extracts valuable information, usually to sell to competitors or to use at their next employer. He paused. "It's not personal, it's just business." The way he said it, the slight emphasis on certain words, the hint of something beneath the professional veneer. Maya's blood ran cold. This wasn't random, this wasn't a mistake, this wasn't some IT glitch or mistaken identity. Someone had done this deliberately. Someone had used her credentials, framed her, set her up to take the fall for something she hadn't done. And Derek was sitting there watching with that careful, neutral expression that wasn't quite neutral enough. "I didn't do this," Maya said again, But even as the words left her mouth, she could see it on their faces. They'd already decided. The evidence was too clear, the logs too precise, her denials too desperate. Patricia's expression was pained, conflicted, like she wanted to believe but couldn't fight the data. I want to believe you, Maya. I really do. But the evidence is very clear. Your credentials, your account. The files were accessed from your assigned workstation. My workstation? Maya felt ice spreading through her chest. You mean my desk computer? Robert clicked through the log. Terminal identification number shows your assigned desktop. Thursday, November 30th, 11:47 p.m. Your username and password authenticated successfully. 2.5 gigabytes transferred to external storage device. The download took approximately 7 minutes. Maya's mind raced. Thursday night she'd been home, had left the office at 6:30. Badge swipe would confirm that. She'd taken the bus, helped Lucas with math, watched TV, gone to bed. She'd been nowhere near the office, nowhere near her desk. But someone had. Someone with her password. Someone who knew exactly what to download and how to make it look like she'd done it. Can I see the full access log? She asked. Sagged. All the records from Thursday? My badge swipes, my system logins, everything? That's part of the ongoing investigation, Robert said. We can't share active evidence with someone who's under suspicion. I'm sure you understand. No. Maya didn't understand, couldn't understand. This was happening too fast, too completely. She felt like she was drowning and nobody would throw her a rope. We're suspending you pending investigation. Robert's voice was final. Absolute. You'll need to surrender your badge and any company property in your possession. You're not to access any company systems or attempt to contact anyone on your team. We'll be in touch once the investigation is complete. Maya stood on legs that didn't feel quite steady, gripped the edge of the table for balance. This is wrong. I didn't do this. Someone set me up. We'll investigate thoroughly, Patricia said, standing too, coming around the table with her hand outstretched. If there's been a mistake, we'll find it. But until then, we have to follow protocol. She held out her hand for the badge. Maya unclipped it from her blouse, the permanent badge she'd been so proud of 5 weeks ago. Proof that she belonged. Proof that she'd made it. Now being taken away because someone had used her account to commit a crime she didn't even understand. She placed it in Patricia's palm, watched Patricia's fingers close around it. Your laptop, Robert said, checking his notes. Do you have a company laptop? No, just the desktop at my desk. I don't have mobile equipment. We'll retrieve it. Do you have any files on personal devices? Any work materials you've taken home on flash drives or personal email? No. Maya shook her head. I do all my work here. I don't even have my work email configured on my phone. You can check. Robert made a note in his portfolio. Very well. You'll need to leave the building immediately. Security will escort you out. Security escort. The words hit like another blow, like she was dangerous, like she was a criminal who might destroy evidence or attack someone if left unsupervised. I understand, Maya said, though she didn't understand any of this, didn't understand how her life had just imploded, didn't understand who had done this or why or how she was supposed to prove her innocence. The walk through the 15th floor felt like walking through a nightmare. 2 security guards flanked her, not touching, not aggressive, just present, visible, making sure everyone knew what was happening. Everyone watched. Of course, everyone watched. Tom looked up from his call. His expression flickered through surprise, confusion, something that might have been concern. Then he turned back to his phone conversation. Nothing to do with him. Emma's hand stopped on her keyboard mid-word. Her eyes went wide. Then she looked away quickly, like seeing Maya being marched out by security was too uncomfortable to witness. Bradley turned in his chair, watched the whole procession. His face showed nothing, just blank observation, taking it in without judgment or empathy. Jennifer and Rachel and Mike and David and all the others. 40 people Maya had worked alongside for 5 weeks. Some who'd ignored her, some who'd been polite, none who'd been warm except Carmen. And Carmen wasn't at her desk. Maya was desperately grateful for that. Couldn't bear to see the look on Carmen's face, the disappointment, the betrayal, the assumption that Maya must have done something to deserve this. The elevator ride down felt endless. Maya stood between the 2 guards, stared at the floor numbers descending. 15, 14, 13, 12. Each floor taking her further from the life she'd been building. the salary that was supposed to change everything, the benefits that were supposed to kick in next week, health insurance for her and Lucas, dental, vision, things they hadn't had in 3 years, all disappearing because someone had decided to destroy her. In the lobby, the receptionist who'd greeted her that first Monday carefully didn't make eye contact, kept her eyes on her computer screen, professional, polite, pretending not to notice the woman being escorted out by security at 9:57 on a Tuesday morning. The waterfall walls still cascaded down gray stone. The marble floors still gleamed under recessed lighting. Everything was exactly the same except Maya's entire world had just collapsed. Outside on the street, November sunshine felt too bright, too normal. People walked past on their lunch break even though it wasn't quite lunchtime yet. Professional clothes, confident strides, everyone who belonged in this world of glass towers and tech companies and six-figure salaries. Maya stood on the sidewalk and tried to breathe, pulled out her phone with shaking hands, stared at the screen without seeing it. Lucas answered on the second ring. Hello? Hey, baby. Maya's voice cracked. Can you ask Miss Chen if you can stay there tonight? I need to handle something. Are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Just a work thing. I'll explain later. Can you stay? Yeah, Miss Chen's here. She says it's fine. What happened? I'll tell you when I get home. I love you. Love you too. Maya hung up, stood on the sidewalk with people streaming past her, professionals going to lunch, tech workers in their casual clothes and expensive sneakers. Everyone who belonged here, who had jobs, who hadn't just been accused of a crime they didn't commit. She started walking, no destination in mind, just walking because standing still felt impossible. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her swipe accept. Ms. Chen, this is Jonathan Hartwell. Maya stopped walking. Mr. Hartwell. I heard about what happened today. I'm looking into it. First person who sounded like he might believe her. She felt tears starting and fought them back. I didn't do anything. I know, the timeline doesn't make sense. You were logged into a training session Thursday night from 6 to 9 p.m. I checked the attendance records. The download happened at 11:47. You can't be in two places at once. Hope flared painfully in her chest. So you know I didn't do it. I know something's wrong. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Just you and me. I want you to look at something. I was told not to access company systems. This is a direct request from the CEO. You're covered. 10 a.m. Use the visitor entrance. I'll have security expecting you. After he hung up, Maya stood on the corner of Peachtree and Fifth and let herself feel it. All of it. The terror, the injustice, the sheer impossibility of proving her innocence. Someone had used her credentials, her account, from her terminal. How was she supposed to fight that? She took the bus home, sat in a middle seat, invisible among the afternoon riders. A teenager with headphones, a woman with a stroller, an elderly man reading a newspaper. Normal people living normal lives while Maya's entire world crumbled. At home, she paced the small apartment, tried to think. Who would do this? Why frame her? What did they gain? Derek's face kept coming back. The way he'd looked at her in that conference room. Not surprised, not confused, just careful, controlled, like he'd been expecting this. She thought about the email she'd sent to Jonathan, about the model being corrected without acknowledgement, about Derek's dismissal when she tried to point out the flaw, about the way he'd said diversity hire in that first interview, the way he'd told her to stay in her lane, the way he'd built walls around her work, keeping her contained in the basics while everyone else did real analysis. She'd made him look bad, questioned his authority, gone around him to Jonathan. And now she was being accused of theft with evidence that seemed ironclad. That night, she barely slept. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how to prove a negative, how to prove she hadn't done something when the log said she had. At 6 a.m., she gave up on sleep, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, couldn't access work systems, but she could think through the problem logically. The download happened at 11:47 Thursday night, from her terminal, with her credentials. But she'd been home, so either someone had her password or someone had used her computer after she left. Her password was strong, 12 characters, mix of letters and numbers and symbols. She hadn't written it down, hadn't shared it, hadn't saved it anywhere except the password manager on her work computer, which meant someone with access to her work computer could have gotten it. Who had access? It, obviously, security, and anyone who could sit at her desk after hours when nobody was watching. At 9:55 the next morning, Maya stood outside Hartwell Technologies again, this time as a visitor, had to sign in at the desk, got a red visitor badge like the one from her first interview, took the elevator to the 17th floor where the executive offices were. Jonathan's assistant waved her straight in. He was at his desk, laptop open, looking tired, like he hadn't slept much either. "Thank you for coming. Sit." Maya sat in one of the chairs facing his desk. Tried not to think about the last time she'd been in an executive office. Derek's corner space with the closed blinds. "I'm giving you temporary access to our network logs." Jonathan pushed the laptop toward her. 2 hours. "I want you to find out what really happened. You want me to investigate my own case? I want someone who's motivated to find the truth. That's you." He stood. "I'll be in meetings. This office is yours. Door locks from inside. Take your time." He left. Maya stared at the laptop, at the login screen showing her temporary access credentials, at the 2 hours she had to prove her innocence. She started with the download log, the evidence against her, pulled it up in all its damning detail. Username, Maya. Chen. Authentication, successful. Time, Thursday, November 30th, 23:47:13. Files accessed, 47 separate documents from secure directories. Total size, 2.47 gigabytes. Destination, external drive. D. Duration, 7 minutes, 23 seconds. She stared at it, forced herself to think like an analyst instead of a victim. What did this tell her? What patterns existed? What didn't make sense? The password had been entered correctly on the first try. No failed attempts, no typos, no hesitation. Whoever did this knew her password exactly. She checked the authentication details, looked at the login sequence, found something. The session had been initiated with a saved credential, not typed manually. Someone had opened her machine and her credentials were already stored. She'd set it that way herself. Single sign-on enabled so she didn't have to type her password every time she needed to access a different system. Standard practice, convenient, and exploitable if someone had physical access to her machine. She looked at the IP address. Internal network, which was expected. But which specific machine? She pulled up the network topology, cross-referenced the IP with the terminal registry, found the terminal ID, then matched that ID to the physical asset database. Her hand stopped moving, hovered over the keyboard. The terminal ID wasn't hers. She double-checked, pulled up her own workstation assignment. Terminal ID ending in 4472, asset tag HT15092. The download had come from terminal ID ending in 4501, asset tag HT17005. She pulled up the location database, queried the asset tag. Location, Executive Office 1702, assigned user, Derek Fisher. The download hadn't come from her desk. It had come from Derek's office. Maya sat back in Jonathan's chair, stared at the screen, felt her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. Derek's office, Derek's computer, using her credentials. But that didn't make complete sense. She wasn't logged in on Derek's computer. How had he accessed her saved credentials? She dug deeper, checked the remote session logs, found a utility buried in the system administration tools. Remote desktop protocol connections. Connections initiated from one machine to access another machine on the network. There, Thursday, November 30th, 23:39:04. Remote session opened from terminal 4501 to terminal 4472. Derek's computer remotely accessing hers. Maintained for 18 minutes. 23:39 to 23:57. The download had happened at 23:47, right in the middle of the remote session window. Someone sitting at Derek's computer had remotely connected to her workstation, had used her stored credentials because the remote session gave them full access to her machine, had downloaded files, had made it look like she'd done it. But why would Derek do this? What did he gain? Maya thought about the email she'd sent to Jonathan 3 weeks ago, the weather variable, the correction to Tom's model that had made Derek look bad, the fact that she'd gone around him, questioned his authority, proven him wrong publicly when Jonathan had quietly implemented her fixes, taken away his ability to dismiss her as incompetent, shown that the junior analyst he'd tried to sideline actually knew what she was doing. She'd made him look bad, threatened his control, and he'd decided to eliminate the threat. But Derek's office had badge access, security cameras. He couldn't have done this without leaving a trail, unless he'd done it himself deliberately. counted on no one questioning that the department head was in his own office after hours. Maya pulled up the badge access logs. Thursday, November 30th, filtered for Derek Fisher. 233851. Access granted D. Fisher, 15th floor executive corridor. 2356 is 24. Exit D. Fisher, 15th floor executive corridor. 18 minutes, from 11:38 p.m. to 11:56 p.m., the exact window of the remote session and download. She checked the security camera file index. The corridor outside Derek's office had 3 cameras. Coverage was continuous. The files existed. She didn't have access to view the actual footage, but the metadata was there. Files for Thursday night, time-stamped, stored on the security server. Proof existed. Evidence existed. If someone looked, Maya pulled up a new document, started building the timeline, screenshot by screenshot, log entry by log entry, building the story the data told. 233851. Derek Fisher badges into executive corridor. 233904. Remote session opens from Derek's terminal to Maya's terminal. 234713. File download begins using Maya's credentials. 235436. File download completes. 235701. Remote session closes. 235624. Derek Fisher badges out of executive corridor. Every timestamp, every terminal ID, every authentication record, every piece of evidence methodically documented and cross-referenced. She added the training session logs, the ones that showed she'd been logged into mandatory security training from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Thursday, proving her account was active in 2 places simultaneously, proving the remote session wasn't her. She added her own badge records, showing she'd left the building at 6:34 p.m., hadn't returned, couldn't have been at her desk at midnight. She built comparison tables, drew connections, made the evidence so clear that anyone reading it would understand immediately what had happened. Derek Fisher had used his position, his access, his knowledge of the system to frame her, had remotely accessed her computer, used her stored credentials, downloaded sensitive files, all while creating logs that would point directly to her. A perfect frame. Would have worked perfectly if Jonathan hadn't asked her to investigate, if she hadn't known how to read the logs, if she hadn't thought like an analyst instead of a victim. She checked her work 3 times, made sure every reference was correct, every timestamp accurate, every conclusion supported by evidence. The data analyst in her demanded rigor, demanded proof, demanded documentation that could withstand scrutiny. Then she compiled it all, attached every screenshot, every log extract, every timeline, everything needed to prove her innocence and Derek's guilt. Wrote an email, addressed to Jonathan Hartwell, subject, found it. 1 sentence in the body, simple, declarative, undeniable. Derek Fisher used my credentials from his office to download the data Thursday night. All supporting evidence is attached. Her cursor hovered over send. This was it. This was the proof. Once she sent this, there was no going back. Derek would be exposed, fired, possibly criminally charged, and she would be vindicated, innocent, proven right. But she'd also be the person who'd taken down a department head, who'd accused a senior leader, who'd used her access to investigate when she'd been told not to, who'd potentially violated a dozen policies by digging through logs she technically shouldn't have accessed. Some companies would thank her. Others would fire her for overstepping, for not trusting the process, for going around the official investigation. She thought about her father, about doing the right thing even when it cost you, about speaking truth even when it was dangerous. She thought about Derek sitting in that conference room, watching her be accused, that careful, neutral expression that hadn't been quite neutral enough. She thought about Lucas, about the promise she'd made, about the example she wanted to set. The answer was obvious. The fear was real, but the choice was clear. She hit send, sat back and realized she was shaking. An hour later, her phone rang. Patricia, can you come back to the office? Conference room B, 2 p.m. Maya's stomach nodded. What's happening? Just please come. At 2 p.m., Maya walked back into Hartwell Technologies for the 3rd time in 2 days. Through the marble lobby, up the elevator to 15, down the hall to conference room B, where she'd had her first interview 6 weeks ago. This time the room was full. Derek sat on one side, face pale. Patricia and Robert were there, Jonathan at the head of the table. His expression was carved from ice. Maya sat, waited. Mr. Fisher, Jonathan's voice was quiet but deadly. Would you like to explain why you accessed Ms. Chen's account from your office last Thursday night? Derek's face went through several colors. I can explain. Please do. I was checking her work, making sure she hadn't made errors. Standard quality assurance. By downloading 2.5 gigabytes of proprietary data, that was accidental. I was reviewing files. Must have clicked the wrong thing. And blaming it on her? Also accidental? Silence. Derek's jaw worked, his hands clenched on the table. Jonathan leaned forward. I've reviewed the evidence Ms. Chen compiled. The logs are clear. You accessed her workstation remotely from your office. You used her credentials. You downloaded sensitive data. And then you orchestrated a complaint that would have resulted in her termination and possible criminal charges. Another silence, longer this time. Something was breaking in Derek's careful control. Then his face hardened. You want to know the truth? Fine. His voice went cold. She's a diversity hire, a quota to fill. She's been here 2 months and thinks she knows better than people who've been doing this for years. She questioned my work, went around me to you, made me look incompetent in front of the client. Patricia looked horrified. Derek! He kept going. I was protecting this team from someone who doesn't belong here. Someone who got this job because of what she looks like, not because of what she can do. I've built this department from 3 people to 40. I've secured millions in contracts. And I'm not going to let some junior analyst who doesn't understand her place destroy what I've created. The words hung in the air like poison. Maya felt like she'd been slapped, but she also felt something else. Vindication. He'd said it, out loud, with witnesses. The quiet part he'd been thinking all along. Jonathan's voice cut through the silence. Ms. Chen belongs here because she's qualified, because she's good at her job, because she caught an error in your model that could have cost us a major client. Derek started to speak. You belong here because I haven't fired you yet. Jonathan's tone was absolute. That's about to change. You're terminated, effective immediately. Robert, escort Mr. Fisher out. If he touches a computer or a phone, call the police. Derek stood. His face was red. This is ridiculous. I've been here 8 years. And you used those 8 years to create a toxic environment and commit corporate sabotage. Get out. Robert stood, held the door open. Derek looked at Maya one last time, pure hatred in his eyes. Then he walked out, the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. The silence that followed felt heavy. Patricia looked shell-shocked. Jonathan's expression was grim. Ms. Chen, Patricia said quietly, I'm so sorry. We should have investigated more thoroughly before suspending you. We should have listened. It's fine, Maya said, though it wasn't. It's not fine. Jonathan turned to her. And I'd like to make it right. How would you feel about a promotion? Maya blinked. I'm sorry? Director of Data Analytics. You'd be taking Derek's position. His voice was steady, certain. I know you're early in your career, but you've proven you can handle the work. And more importantly, you have integrity. You caught a major flaw that Derek missed. You spoke up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. You maintained your professionalism even when you were being accused of a crime you didn't commit. He paused. I'd also like you to help me overhaul our hiring and evaluation practices. Because clearly we've been getting something very wrong. Maya couldn't speak. Director, Derek's position, leading the team that had barely acknowledged her existence, overseeing the people who'd watched her get walked out by security yesterday. Take some time to think about it, Jonathan said. Yes. The word came out before Maya could stop it. I mean, yes. Thank you. She couldn't believe she'd said it. Couldn't believe any of this was real. Suspended yesterday, promoted today. The whiplash was making her dizzy. Welcome to leadership, Maya. Jonathan actually smiled. Patricia will work out the details. Salary, start date, transition plan. We'll make an announcement to the team tomorrow. After the meeting, Patricia walked her to the elevator. I really am sorry. About the suspension. About not questioning the evidence more carefully. You were doing your job, maybe, but we should have done it better. Patricia pushed the elevator button. Derek has been a problem for a while. Little things, comments, the way he treated certain team members versus others. But he was effective at his job, so we overlooked the rest. The elevator arrived. Maya stepped in. Not anymore, Patricia said. Things are going to be different. That night, Maya told Lucas everything. The accusation, the suspension, the investigation, the confrontation, the promotion. He listened with wide eyes. You're the boss now. I'm a boss. There are other bosses, but yeah, Lucas tackled her in a hug. Dad would be so proud. Maya's eyes stung. Yeah, he would be. Over the weekend, she tried to process it all. From data cleaner to director in 6 weeks. From invisible to leadership. From accused to vindicated. The arc of it felt impossible. But she also felt the weight of what she'd proven. That speaking up could cost you. That the system would punish you for being right. That Derek had been willing to destroy her career, possibly her freedom, to maintain his control. And she thought about all the people who'd stayed quiet because they knew this could happen. Who'd seen problems and said nothing because speaking up wasn't worth the risk. Who'd learned to survive by being invisible. She understood that impulse now, viscerally, in her bones, the fear of being targeted, the knowledge that the system would protect the powerful and sacrifice the vulnerable. But she also understood something else. If she stayed silent, if she let fear win, then Derek would have succeeded. Not in framing her, but in making her smaller. In teaching her that integrity was too expensive. Sunday evening, Eleanor called. Jonathan told me everything. I'm so sorry, dear. It worked out, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place. Eleanor's voice was fierce. You did nothing wrong and they treated you like a criminal. They didn't know. They should have known. They should have questioned the evidence. They should have trusted you. Eleanor paused. I'm proud of you. For not running, for investigating, for proving your innocence. I just followed the data. You did more than that. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let them destroy you. That takes real courage. After they hung up, Maya sat with those words. Courage. She didn't feel courageous. She felt exhausted, vindicated but tired, promoted but wary. Monday morning arrived. Maya put on her best clothes, the black skirt and white blouse that had become her uniform, walked into Hartwell Technologies with her new badge, Director of Data Analytics. Patricia had sent an email to the whole department Sunday night, brief and professional. Derek Fisher is no longer with the company. Maya Chen has been promoted to Director of Data Analytics effective immediately. Please join me in welcoming her to the leadership team. When Maya stepped off the elevator at 15, people looked up. Tom, Emma, Bradley, Jennifer, Rachel, Mike, David, all of them. Faces showing shock, confusion, some respect, some resentment. Carmen was at her desk, stood up and came over, hugged Maya tight. You did it. I didn't do anything. I just proved I didn't do what they said I did. You did everything. Carmen pulled back, hands on Maya's shoulders. You stood up for yourself. You found the truth. You didn't let them destroy you. That's everything. Maya looked around the department, at the 40 people who'd be reporting to her now, who'd watched her be escorted out by security, who knew Derek had tried to frame her, who now had to accept her as their boss. She walked to the center of the floor, everyone watching, cleared her throat. I know this transition is unexpected. I know some of you have concerns. I want to be clear. I'm here because I earned it, not because of who I helped. Not because of diversity quotas, not because of politics, but because I'm good at this work. She looked at Tom. If you have an idea, I want to hear it. At Emma, if you see a problem, speak up. At Bradley, we're going to make this team better, starting now. Silence. Then Carmen started clapping. Slow at first, then others joined, not everyone. Tom didn't, Bradley didn't, but enough people that it felt like maybe possibly this could work. That evening, Maya rode the bus home. Not as a junior analyst, as a director, as someone who'd been torn down and built back up in the same week, as someone who'd learned exactly how much speaking up could cost and had chosen to speak anyway. An elderly man got on, struggled with his cane and his bag. The bus driver didn't help. The passengers looked away. Maya stood, offered her seat, helped him settle. Thank you, young lady. Not many people stop anymore. Maya smiled. It's what I do. Because that's who she was. The person who stopped, who spoke up, who did the right thing even when the cost was almost everything, who'd been rewarded this time but knew she might not be next time, who'd do it anyway because the alternative was becoming someone she didn't recognize. At home, Lucas was waiting, made dinner already, spaghetti, because they'd gotten good at it. How was your first day as director? Overwhelming, terrifying, good. They ate together, talked about his robotics project, about the competition coming up in spring, about the robot they were designing. about normal things that felt precious after the week she'd had. Later alone, Maya looked at her father's photo, the one she kept in the kitchen drawer. I did it, Dad. Made it through. Didn't let them break me. She thought about Derek's hatred, about the system that had almost destroyed her, about Jonathan's offer, about the team she'd have to lead who half didn't want her there, about the fact that she'd stopped for Eleanor 6 weeks ago. And it had led to this, to being falsely accused and vindicated and promoted, to learning that doing the right thing could cost you everything and save you at the same time. She'd stopped when everyone else kept going, and she'd keep stopping. As a director now, as a leader, as someone with the power to make things better for people who came after her. That was worth everything. Every struggle, every dismissal, every moment of fear. She was the person who stopped, and now she could help other people stop too. 14 months after the morning Maya got off a bus to help a stranger, she stood in a different apartment looking at a life she barely recognized. 2 bedrooms instead of 1. Heat that worked consistently, radiating from vents that didn't rattle and wheeze. Water pressure that didn't fluctuate between trickle and flood. Windows that closed all the way, keeping out the November cold that used to seep through gaps in the old place. Lucas had his own room now. Not just a corner of the living room with a curtain strung across for privacy, but an actual room with a door that closed and walls painted the blue he'd picked out himself. His robotics trophies lined a shelf above a desk that was actually meant to be a desk, not a salvaged folding table that wobbled if you pressed too hard. 3rd place, regional competition. 1st place, local qualifier. Honorable mention, state championship. Each one represented hours of work. Hours Maya had been able to support because she wasn't working 3 freelance projects at once just to keep the lights on. The kitchen had a working coffee maker. Not just any coffee maker, but one that ground beans fresh every morning. A small extravagance that still felt absurd. The refrigerator kept things cold without that concerning hum that suggested imminent failure. The cabinets closed properly, their hinges intact, their surfaces clean. On the counter sat a stack of mail that was bills paid on time, not final notices in red ink. Electricity, water, internet, insurance. All current, all managed, all handled with money left over at the end of the month instead of the desperate calculations of which bill could wait another week. On the fridge hung Lucas's latest report card. Still straight A's. Always straight A's because he was brilliant and driven and determined to make his father proud even 3 years after James Chen's death. Next to it, a photo from the regional robotics competition where his team had placed 3rd. Lucas stood in the center, holding part of their robot, grinning with the unselfconscious joy of an 11-year-old who'd built something real. There were other photos too, new ones. Maya and Lucas at the apartment complex pool last summer. Eleanor's birthday dinner 2 months ago. A group shot from the Hartwell Technologies holiday party where Maya stood with her team, Carmen beside her, both of them wearing the slightly awkward smiles of people who still couldn't quite believe they'd made it to leadership. Maya stood at the counter making real coffee. Not instant crystals dissolved in barely hot water. Not gas station brew in a paper cup. Actual coffee from beans she'd bought at a local roaster. She measured the grounds, added water, pressed the button, and listened to the grinder whir and the machine gurgle and produce coffee that smelled like something worth having. She was director of data analytics now, had been for 13 months. The title still felt strange sometimes, like someone else's clothes that fit but didn't quite belong to her. The salary felt stranger, $68,000 a year. Not wealthy, not even comfortable by Atlanta standards where tech money pushed housing prices up and up, but stable, predictable, enough to breathe, enough to save, enough to finally stop calculating every purchase down to the penny, enough to buy Lucas the robotics kit he wanted without having to choose between that and his new shoes, enough to replace the ancient desktop computer that took 10 minutes to boot up, enough to take Eleanor to dinner on her birthday without mentally tallying the tip before ordering, enough to be generous occasionally, to help neighbors, to donate to causes, to live like a person instead of a mathematical equation constantly trying to balance. Lucas wandered into the kitchen, taller now at 11, all long legs and changing voice. "Morning," he mumbled, heading straight for the cereal. "Big day," Maya said. He looked at her over the box of actual name brand cereal. They could afford Cheerios now. The real ones, not the knockoff circles that tasted like cardboard. The memorial thing? The dedication ceremony for Dad. Lucas nodded, poured his cereal, sat at the table that was big enough for both of them to eat at the same time without bumping elbows. You nervous? A little. He's going to be proud, wherever he is. He already is. Maya felt the familiar tightness in her chest. 14 months since she'd gotten off that bus. 3 years and 2 months since her father died. Sometimes it felt like yesterday. Sometimes it felt like a lifetime ago. The ceremony was at 10, the bus stop in West End, where James Chen had collapsed in a Kroger parking lot, where 13 people had walked past him, where he'd died alone waiting for an ambulance that arrived 47 minutes too late. The city had agreed to renovate it. New shelter, new benches, new lighting, better accessibility, and a bronze plaque that would carry his name and a message Maya had spent weeks perfecting. Eleanor had insisted on paying for it. Wouldn't hear any arguments. Maya had tried, had said the memorial should come from the family, from her and Lucas. But Eleanor had been adamant. You gave me my life back, Eleanor had said 6 months ago when they'd started planning. Let me give your father the recognition he deserved. Let me do this. And Maya had finally agreed. Because Eleanor understood something important. The memorial wasn't just about James Chen. It was about everyone like him. Everyone who'd been overlooked. Everyone who died alone because the system had decided they weren't worth stopping for. By 9:30, Maya and Lucas were dressed. He wore the suit she'd bought him for the robotics competition. She wore something new, not expensive, but hers. Not borrowed or thrifted. A simple black dress that fit properly. Professional, appropriate, affordable on a director's salary. They took the bus. Maya insisted on that. Could have driven. She'd bought a used Honda 2 months ago. 10 years old, but reliable. But today, they took the bus. The same route her father had taken to work for 20 years. The same stops, the same streets. Full circle. The bus stop looked completely transformed. Maya almost didn't recognize it when they approached from a block away. Where there'd been a rusted bench with broken slats and a shelter with a roof that leaked and walls tagged with graffiti, there was now something that looked permanent. Something that said people mattered here. People had invested here. People had decided this corner of West End deserved better. The shelter curved elegantly, modern design that somehow fit the neighborhood. Metal roof with solar panels integrated seamlessly. 3 walls of tempered glass etched with a subtle pattern of leaves and branches. Natural light, but protection from wind and rain. Benches with actual backs and armrests. LED lighting that would make the stop visible and safe after dark. Accessible ramps at proper angles. Tactile paving for vision-impaired passengers. Trash receptacles that were actually emptied regularly now because the city had agreed to maintain this stop as part of the memorial agreement. And on the wall facing the street, mounted at eye level, a bronze plaque, 6 feet wide, 3 feet tall, substantial, heavy, permanent in a way that said this wasn't going anywhere. The bronze had been treated to develop a patina that made it look both new and timeless. Elegant script that was readable from the street. In memory of James Chen, 1968 to 2022, who taught his daughter that people matter more than schedules. And below that, in smaller letters, this shelter honors all those who help when others walk by. All those who stop when they could keep going. All those who remember that we rise or fall together. Maya stood 20 feet away, Lucas beside her, and felt the weight of those words. Her father's name in bronze, his life reduced to dates in a single sentence. But what a sentence! What a legacy! What a truth that had shaped her entire life. People were gathering. The crowd was larger than Maya had expected. Maybe 70, 80 people. More than she'd invited. Word had spread through the neighborhood, through the warehouse where James had worked, through the networks of people who'd known him or known of him or just knew that someone was finally recognizing the invisible workers who kept the city running. Neighbors from the old apartment building. Mrs. Washington, who'd helped watch Lucas when he was 7, and Maya was scrambling to keep everything together. Marcus Johnson Sr., who'd worked the same warehouse shift as James for 15 years. The Martinez family who'd lived upstairs and whose kids had played with Lucas in the parking lot. People Maya had grown up with. People who'd watched her struggle. People who knew exactly how far she'd come. Former coworkers from the warehouse. Men in their 40s and 50s and 60s who'd lifted boxes alongside James, who'd thrown out their backs, who'd worked double shifts, who'd done everything right and still barely scraped by. They stood in a cluster, wearing their Sunday best, showing respect for one of their own who died too young. Eleanor was there, walking with a cane now but steady. Her hip had healed well. Jonathan stood beside her, looking uncomfortable in a suit that was somehow too formal and too casual at the same time. Carmen was there. Had driven down from her sister's place in Marietta. Patricia from HR. A dozen people from Hartwell Technologies. Tom wasn't there. Neither was Bradley. But Emma had come, Jennifer, Rachel. Some of the team who'd learned to respect Maya over the past year. Some who never would but attended anyway because the company had made it clear attendance was expected. And students, 50 of them wearing matching gray shirts with a logo Maya had helped design. The Hartwell Scholars. First cohort. Freshmen at colleges across Georgia and neighboring states. Full ride scholarships. Tuition, room, board, books, stipend. Everything they needed. The program had been Eleanor's idea. Maya's design, Jonathan's funding, targeting students from underfunded schools. First-generation college students. Kids who had to work twice as hard for half the recognition. Kids who needed a chance. The application wasn't just grades and test scores. It required an essay. Tell us about a time you helped someone at personal cost. Tell us about a moment when you stopped, when you could have kept going. They'd gotten 2,000 applications, had funding for 50. Choosing had been the hardest thing Maya had ever done professionally. One of them, Jasmine Williams, 18, headed to Georgia Tech in the fall, stood near the plaque now. She'd be speaking, had asked to. Had written Maya an email 3 weeks ago saying she needed to say thank you publicly. The ceremony started simply. A city councilwoman Maya had never met said some words about community investment and public transportation improvements, droned on about initiative and partnership and revitalization. Standard political speech that meant nothing and everything. Then Jonathan spoke. Brief, professional. Hartwell Technologies is proud to support this memorial and the scholarship program named in honor of James Chen and Eleanor Hartwell. We believe in recognizing the people who make our communities strong, the people who show up every day, the people who help when no one is watching. His eyes found Maya's, held for a moment. She nodded slightly. He'd learned something over the past 14 months. About seeing people. About value that wasn't measured in productivity metrics. About the cost of not stopping. Then Jasmine stepped up to the small podium they'd set up. 17, about to turn 18, black girl with natural hair pulled back. Nervous hands clutching note cards. Voice shaking slightly when she started. I didn't think I'd go to college. Her voice steadied as she went on. My mom works 3 jobs. My dad's not around. I was going to work at Target after graduation. Maybe take community college classes at night. Maybe. She looked at Maya. Then I got this scholarship. Someone I'd never met decided I was worth investing in. Decided my story mattered. Decided that helping someone at personal cost, which is what I wrote my essay about, was worth recognizing. Jasmine's voice cracked. So I'm here to say thank you. And to say to anyone listening, be the person who stops. Be the person who helps. Because you never know whose life you might change. The crowd applauded, quiet at first, then louder. Jasmine stepped down, wiped her eyes. Maya wanted to hug her, but the ceremony wasn't over. Eleanor went next, walked carefully to the podium, gripped it with both hands, looked at the plaque with James Chen's name. 14 months ago, I fell on a bus. Eleanor's voice was clear despite her age. I was in pain. I was alone. The driver dumped me on an empty street in the rain. Passengers looked away, and I thought, this is how I die. Invisible. Forgotten. She paused. Then Maya Chen got off that bus with me, missed the most important job interview of her life, stayed with me for 7 hours, lost everything she'd worked for a stranger. Eleanor looked at Maya. Her father taught her that. James Chen taught his daughter that people matter more than schedules, that doing the right thing is worth the cost, that you stop when someone needs help. Period. No exceptions. This memorial isn't just for James. It's for everyone like him. Everyone who showed up, everyone who helped, everyone who died alone, because we forgot that stopping matters. More applause. Eleanor walked back carefully. Lucas helped her to a bench. The ceremony paused. People milled. Someone had brought coffee. Someone else had pastries. Community building around a renovated bus stop. Then it was Maya's turn. She stood at the podium, looked at the crowd, at Lucas, 11 years old and trying not to cry, at Eleanor, 77 now and steady on her cane, at Jasmine and the other 49 scholars, at Carmen and Patricia and the Hartwell people, at neighbors she'd grown up with, at strangers who'd come because they'd read about the ceremony in the newspaper. My dad died 3 years ago. Maya started without notes, without preparation, just truth. He collapsed in a parking lot. People saw him. People walked past. One person called 911 but didn't stay. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. She had to stop, breathe. Lucas was crying now. She could see him from the podium, trying to hide it, failing. I used to be angry about that, angry at those people for not stopping. But now I understand they weren't evil. They were scared of getting involved, scared of being late, scared of whatever cost comes with helping. She looked at the plaque, at her father's name in bronze letters. But 14 months ago, I got off a bus because I couldn't walk past someone who needed help. And yeah, it cost me. It cost me a job interview. It cost me hours. It cost me the easy path. Pause. Let that sit. But it also gave me something. It gave me perspective. It gave me purpose. It reminded me that people matter more than schedules, that my father's death wasn't meaningless if it taught me to stop. She looked at the scholars. You're here because someone stopped for you, because someone decided you were worth the investment. I'm asking you to pay it forward. When you see someone who needs help, stop. When you see injustice, speak up. When you see someone being left behind, be the person who turns around. Her voice strengthened. This bus stop is named for my father, but it's not about him. It's about all of us. It's about the choice we make when we see someone fall. Do we keep walking or do we stop? She let the question hang. Do we pretend we didn't see or do we help? The applause was different this time, sustained, genuine. People weren't just being polite, they were moved. Maya could see it in their faces. Then Jonathan took the podium one more time. Unexpected, not planned. He looked at Maya, at Eleanor, at the scholars. Hartwell Technologies is expanding the Hartwell Scholars Program. His voice carried across the crowd. From 50 students annually to 100 students. We're doubling our commitment, doubling our investment in people who stop. Gasps. The scholars looked at each other. 100 students, 2,000 applications. Better odds, more chances, more lives changed. We're also implementing new workplace policies guided by Director Chen's recommendations, because she taught us that the people we overlook might be the ones we need most. That diversity isn't a checkbox, it's strength. That speaking up isn't insubordination, it's integrity. He looked directly at Maya. She reminded us what my mother tried to teach me, that people matter more than profit, that stopping for someone isn't weakness, it's humanity. The ceremony ended. People lingered. Students talked to Maya, asked about her path, her advice, how she'd gotten here. She answered each one honestly, told them about the data cleaning, the invisible work, the time she'd been dismissed, the moment she'd been framed, the choice to investigate anyway. She didn't sugarcoat it, didn't pretend it had been easy, told them the truth, that doing the right thing could cost everything, that the system would test you, that speaking up was dangerous, that you did it anyway because the alternative was becoming someone you didn't recognize. Neighbors came up, thanked her for bringing attention to the area, for the renovation, for making the city care about West End even for a moment, for giving James Chen's death meaning. Eleanor found her by the plaque, gripped Maya's hand. How are you feeling? Maya looked at her father's name, at the words beneath it, in honor of those who stopped to help. Overwhelmed, happy, all of it. He'd be proud. Eleanor's voice was fierce, so proud. After most people had left, just Maya and Lucas and Eleanor and Jonathan remained, standing by the new shelter, looking at the plaque. The four of them connected by a moment on a bus 14 months ago. Come to dinner tomorrow, Eleanor said. You and Lucas. I'm making pot roast. You don't have to keep feeding us. I want to. You're family now, both of you. Lucas brightened. Can I bring my robot? I want to show you the new arm mechanism. Please do, Eleanor said. I've been dying to see it. That evening, Maya and Lucas rode the bus home. Different route, different direction. But still the bus, still public transportation. Still the thing that connected them to the city, to other people, to the choice Maya had made. An elderly woman got on at Ponce de Leon, struggled with her walker. The bus driver watched but didn't help. The passengers looked at phones, standard Atlanta indifference. Maya stood, helped the woman settle, held her walker, made sure she was secure before the bus moved. Thank you, dear, the woman said. Not many people stop anymore. Maya smiled. More people than you'd think. We're just not always loud about it. At home, Lucas made dinner. He'd gotten good at it over the past year. What had started as necessity when Maya worked late had become something he took pride in. Spaghetti tonight, their reliable standby, but now with actual meat sauce made from scratch, fresh bread from the bakery down the street, a salad that came from actual vegetables he'd chopped himself, not a pre-mixed bag from the grocery store. They ate at the table that fit them properly, big enough that they weren't bumping elbows, sturdy enough that it didn't wobble when Lucas leaned forward enthusiastically talking about his robot design. They talked about the ceremony, about the speeches, about seeing Dad's name in bronze on that wall, about the 49 students wearing those gray shirts, about Jasmine's speech, about the way people had applauded, about the fact that something good had come from something terrible. Do you think he knows? Lucas asked eventually. His voice was quieter, more careful. Dad, do you think he knows what you did? The memorial and the scholarships and everything? Maya looked at the photo on the fridge. James Chen holding newborn Lucas in the hospital, taken 11 years ago on the day Lucas was born. Her father's face full of wonder at this tiny human. The note still lived in Maya's drawer. This suit is for important days. Days when you show the world who you really are. Yeah, she said. Her voice was certain. I think he knows. I think he's been with us the whole time, pushing me to get off that bus, giving me courage to investigate when I was accused, reminding me what matters. Lucas nodded. Sometimes I dream about him. He's watching us. Not sad, just watching, making sure we're okay. Are we okay? Okay, Lucas smiled. That real smile that crinkled his eyes. Yeah, we're better than okay. Later, alone in her room after Lucas had gone to bed, Maya pulled out the suit, her father's suit, the one she'd worn on the bus that rainy November morning 14 months ago. Ruined, helping Eleanor, wrinkled beyond repair, stained with rain and mud and whatever else had been on that street. She'd had it cleaned and pressed as well as possible, hung it in her closet in a garment bag like it was something precious, like evidence of the moment that changed everything. She unzipped the bag, touched the fabric, remembered her father wearing it to Lucas's kindergarten graduation, to church on Easter, to the one fancy restaurant they'd gone to for Maya's 20th birthday. 3 times he'd worn it, 3 times before the heart attack. And she'd worn it once, on the most important day of her life, not the interview, the moment before the interview, the choice that defined everything that came after. She thought about the path from there to here, from that bus stop in the rain to this apartment with working heat, from junior analyst cleaning data to director leading a team of 42, from invisible worker to recognized leader, from accused criminal to vindicated investigator. The arc of it felt impossible when she laid it out like that, felt like a story someone else had lived. But she also thought about the cost, about the nights she'd lain awake calculating bills, wondering if she'd made the right choice, about the mornings she'd woken up terrified she'd lose everything, about the times she'd been dismissed, ignored, treated like she didn't matter, about the walk through the office with security guards on either side while everyone watched, about the moment in that conference room when Derek had looked at her with satisfaction, thinking he'd destroyed her, about the hours investigating alone in Jonathan's office, knowing if she was wrong she'd lose everything, about the cursor hovering over send, choosing between safety and truth, about the system that had tried to break her. That broke most people. That crushed anyone who challenged it, anyone who spoke up, anyone who insisted there had to be a better way. She'd been lucky. That's what she had to acknowledge. The timing had been right. She'd gotten off that bus to help the CEO's mother, which created connections most people didn't get. Jonathan had been fair when many bosses wouldn't have been. Eleanor had been generous when she didn't have to be. The evidence of Derek's frame job had been clear, when usually it would have been ambiguous. The investigators had actually looked when usually they just protected the person with seniority. 100 things could have gone differently. Could have left her jobless. Could have left her with a criminal record. Could have destroyed her ability to support Lucas. Could have sent them back to poverty worse than before because now she'd be unhireable. The happy ending wasn't guaranteed, wasn't even likely. Most people who challenged the system lost. Most people who spoke up got fired. Most people who stopped to help paid costs that couldn't be recovered. Most whistleblowers ended up unemployed and blacklisted. Most people who insisted on integrity ended up poor and bitter and warning others not to make their mistakes. But she'd do it again. That was the truth Maya kept coming back to in these quiet moments, even knowing the risk, even understanding the odds, even recognizing how much of her success was luck rather than justice. She'd get off that bus again. She'd help Eleanor again. She'd send that email to Jonathan again. She'd investigate Derek's frame job again. She'd speak up again and again and again. Because the alternative was living with silence, was becoming someone who looked away when people needed help, was teaching Lucas that survival mattered more than integrity, was becoming one of those 13 people who'd walk past his father dying in a parking lot. She couldn't do that, wouldn't do that. Her father hadn't raised her that way. Hadn't worked double shifts and thrown out his back and died alone, so that his daughter could learn to protect herself at the expense of others. He'd taught her to stop, and she'd keep stopping, even when it cost her, even when it scared her, even when she knew the system would punish her for it. Because that's what integrity meant. Not doing the right thing when it was easy or profitable, but doing it anyway when it was hard and expensive and dangerous. That's what her father had done every day of his life. And that's what she'd do every day of hers. And she couldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. Her father hadn't raised her that way. The next morning, Sunday, Maya woke early from habit. 6 a.m. No alarm needed anymore. Her body had learned this rhythm. She made coffee in the machine that ground beans fresh, sat at the kitchen table with her laptop and the weak November sunlight coming through windows that closed properly. Pulled up the Hartwell Scholars application portal, the system she'd helped design, the database that tracked essays and grades and recommendations, and all the data points that tried to quantify whether someone deserved a chance. 200 new applications had come in overnight after Jonathan's announcement about expanding the program from 50 to 100 students. 200 more essays about stopping, about helping at personal cost, about choosing people over convenience, about moments when survival and integrity collided and integrity won. Maya read them one by one. Not skimming, really reading. Each essay was someone's life, someone's choice, someone's moment of courage that they thought might be worth something. A girl from South Georgia, small town, population 800. She'd been saving for college since middle school. Had $2,000 after 4 years of working at a diner. Her mother got cancer. No insurance. Treatment was expensive. The girl had given her college fund to her mother without hesitation. Wrote about it matter-of-factly, like, of course she'd do that. What else would someone do when their mother was dying? A boy in Dalton who'd worked at a carpet factory. Noticed his boss was shorting workers' hours. Reporting actual time worked as less than real hours. Wage theft, systematic, affecting everyone. The boy had reported it to HR first, then to the state labor board when HR did nothing. Got fired for it, lost his job at 17, spent 6 months unemployed and blacklisted before finding work at a gas station. Still thought he'd made the right choice. A student in Savannah, black girl 15, who'd stood up to a teacher making racist comments in class. Documented it, reported it, got suspended for being disruptive. The teacher kept his job. She got punished for speaking up, wrote about it without bitterness, just stated facts. This happened. I did what was right. I'd do it again. A kid in Columbus who'd been walking to work when he saw a car accident. Bad one. Cars mangled. People injured. He'd stopped, missed work helping, stayed with an injured woman until the ambulance came, kept her conscious, probably saved her life. Got fired for being 2 hours late. No exceptions policy. Lost his job helping a stranger. Wrote that he wouldn't change anything. Story after story. Each one a small act of courage. Each one a choice that cost something. Each one proof that people still stopped, still helped, still cared even when caring was expensive. Maya made notes, flagged applications for full committee review, built a list of students who deserved serious consideration, categorized by need level, academic strength, essay quality, recommendation power, all the factors that would go into choosing which 100 students out of 2,000 plus applications would get full rides. The work was volunteer, unpaid, done on her own time on Sunday morning when she could have been sleeping in or reading or doing anything else. But it mattered more than anything she did at Hartwell during the week. This was the legacy. Not the director title, not the salary, not the team leadership, but this, helping other people get the chances she'd gotten. Making sure their moments of stopping weren't punished, creating a system that rewarded integrity instead of crushing it. At 9, Lucas wandered in, saw her at the laptop surrounded by coffee cups and notes. Still working on applications? Yeah, 200 new ones overnight. That's a lot, he said, pouring himself cereal. Maya stretched, closed the laptop lid. Yeah, but they're worth it. Every single one of them stopped when they could have kept going. That deserves recognition. Like you stopped for Eleanor. Like Dad stopped for everyone, Maya corrected. I just learned from the best. Around noon, after reading 60 applications, Maya got an email notification. New message in her director inbox. She almost ignored it. Sundays were supposed to be personal time. Work could wait until Monday. But something made her open it. The sender was someone she didn't recognize. Subject line, thank you. She clicked. Ms. Chen, my name is Marcus Johnson. I applied for the Hartwell Scholarship this year. I didn't get it. I understand why. My essay wasn't strong enough compared to others. My grades, while solid, weren't exceptional. I had competition from students who needed it more and deserved it more. I'm not writing to complain or argue that decision. I'm writing to thank you, because the application process made me think about stopping. Made me look at my life and ask, when have I helped people at personal cost? When have I chosen to do the right thing even when it hurt? When have I been the person who stops instead of the person who keeps walking? And I realized I hadn't been doing that enough. I'd been focused on survival, on getting through, on protecting myself and my family. All reasonable things, all necessary things, but not enough. So I'm going to community college this fall. I'm going to work part-time at my uncle's shop. I'm going to save money and build skills and apply to the scholarship again next year. But more importantly, I'm going to keep stopping. I'm going to help people. I'm going to speak up when I see injustice. I'm going to be the kind of person who deserves that scholarship whether I ever get it or not. Because you taught me that's what matters. Not the money, not the recognition, but becoming someone who makes the world better just by being in it. My father died 2 years ago. Construction accident. I was 15. Suddenly I had to help my mom with my 3 younger siblings. Had to grow up fast. Had to make choices between what I wanted and what my family needed. Your father died too. You had to raise your brother. You know what that's like. The weight of it, the fear, the constant calculation of whether you're enough. But you didn't just survive. You became someone who helps others survive too. Who builds systems that give people chances. Who stops when people need help. That's who I want to be, whether I ever get the scholarship or not. So thank you for creating this program, for asking students to write about stopping, for valuing integrity enough to reward it. I'm going to keep stopping. And someday, when I've built something worth building, I'm going to create my own scholarship program for students who help people, for kids who speak up, for people who stop when they could keep going, because that's what your father taught you, and you taught me, and I'll teach whoever comes after. Thank you for that. Marcus Johnson. Maya read the email 3 times, then a 4th, then saved it in a folder she'd created months ago for messages like this. She had 83 of them now, from students who'd applied and not gotten selected, from people who'd read about the memorial, from strangers who'd been moved by the story of a woman who got off a bus to help someone. Each one proof that stopping mattered, that small acts of integrity rippled outward, that teaching people to care could change the world one person at a time. She typed a response, kept it brief, sincere. Marcus, your email made my Sunday. Thank you for sharing your story and your commitment to stopping. That's exactly the spirit this program is trying to honor. Keep applying, keep stopping, keep building the life your father would be proud of. You're already the kind of person who deserves the scholarship. The money will catch up when the time is right. Maya Chen. She hit send, closed the laptop, sat back and let herself feel it. The purpose, the meaning, the fact that something good was growing from something terrible. Her father's death had created ripples. The memorial was one ripple. The scholarship program was another. Marcus Johnson's email was a third. Each one spreading outward. Each one teaching someone new that stopping mattered. Each one proof that James Chen's life had meaning beyond the 47 years he'd lived. That his death, senseless and preventable and tragic, could still create something beautiful if someone had the courage to make meaning from loss. The next morning, Monday, Maya went to work. Director of Data Analytics, led a team of 42 people now, 2 more hired in the past month. Team was stronger, more diverse, more willing to speak up because Maya had made it clear that speaking up was expected. Tom had left 6 months ago. Couldn't handle working for someone he'd dismissed. Someone he'd watched get escorted out by security who'd come back as his boss. He'd found another job, probably still treated junior analysts like they didn't matter. Some people never learned. But Emma had stayed, had apologized quietly one day, had said she should have spoken up when Derek was there, should have said something when she saw how Maya was treated. Should have been better. Maya had accepted the apology, had promoted Emma 3 months later, associate data scientist, because Emma had learned, had grown, had proven she could change. Carmen was senior director now, Maya's second in command. They'd built something real together, a team that valued competence over seniority, that listened to ideas regardless of who had them, that investigated problems instead of defending mistakes. It wasn't perfect, still had issues, still had people who resented Maya, still had moments of discrimination subtle and overt, but it was better, measurably better. Employee satisfaction up, retention up, quality of work up, client satisfaction up. The data proved it worked. Treating people like they mattered worked. Listening to junior analysts worked. Creating space for people to speak up worked. That afternoon, Maya got an email from a student she didn't recognize. Subject line, "Thank you." She opened it. "Ms. Chen, my name is Marcus Johnson. I didn't get the Hartwell Scholarship this year. My essay wasn't strong enough, my grades weren't high enough, I understand. But I wanted to thank you anyway, because the application process made me think about stopping. Made me realize that helping people matters, that it's worth writing about, worth valuing, worth building a life around. I'm going to community college this fall. I'm going to work part-time. I'm going to apply again next year. And in the meantime, I'm going to keep stopping, keep helping, keep doing the right thing, even when it costs me. Because you taught me that's what matters. Not whether I get the scholarship, but whether I become the kind of person who deserves it. Thank you for that. Thank you for stopping." Maya read it 3 times, then saved it in a folder she'd created for messages like this. Had 67 of them now. From students who'd applied, students who'd lost someone, people who'd read about the memorial, strangers who'd been moved by the story. Each one proof that stopping mattered, that small acts of integrity rippled outward, that teaching people to care could change the world one person at a time. That evening, riding the bus home, Maya thought about Marcus Johnson, about the scholarship he hadn't gotten, about the essay that wasn't strong enough, about community college and part-time work and trying again next year, about the fact that he'd thanked her anyway, had learned something anyway, had decided to keep stopping anyway. That was the real success. Not the 50 students who got scholarships, but the 2,000 who applied, who wrote essays about helping people, who thought about what mattered, who decided that stopping was worth celebrating even if they didn't win. An elderly man got on the bus, cane in one hand, bag in the other, struggled to manage both. Maya stood, helped him to her seat, held his bag while he settled. "Thank you, young lady," he said. "Not many people stop anymore." "More than you'd think," Maya said. "We're getting better." And maybe they were. Maybe the memorial and the scholarships and the stories people told were changing something. Maybe teaching people to value stopping was making it more common. Maybe her father's death had created ripples that were still spreading. At home, Lucas had made dinner again. Spaghetti, their comfort food, their tradition. "How was work?" he asked. "Good," Maya said. "Got an email from a student who didn't get the scholarship. He thanked me anyway, said he learned something from applying." Lucas nodded. "That's cool, like Dad. He didn't need recognition to do good work. He just did it." "Yeah, just like Dad." They ate together, talked about Lucas's upcoming school year, about the new robotics competition, about the robot they were building, about normal things that felt precious after everything they'd been through. Later, Maya sat on the couch with her father's photo, the note in her pocket. This suit is for important days, days when you show the world who you really are. She'd worn that suit on the day she got off the bus, had ruined it helping Eleanor, had lost everything, had gained everything, had become the person her father raised her to be, the person who stopped, the person who helped, the person who did the right thing even when the cost was everything. And in the morning, she'd do it again, would read more applications, would help more students, would lead her team, would stop when someone needed help, would speak up when something was wrong, would keep building a world where stopping mattered. Because that's who she was. That's who her father taught her to be. And that finally was enough.